Hey everyone, and welcome to Comics from the Multiverse, the DC Comics podcast from MailFuzz TV. I am Peter, and unfortunately Matt is not here this week. Matt had some family stuff to go take care of, so he misses out, but what we do have here, and arguably, I mean, it's up to your own opinion if this is better or worse than me being here on my own, but Connor's here.
How is it when even though I'm here and Matt's not, I still get last billing?
Because it's in Matt's contract. He has to be He has to be second. Even if he's not here, he has to be credited. It's that thing where the actors in the contracts have like their name has to be like first or second in the poster. So you end up with this weird thing where the faces don't match the names that are above them. So
Stipulate where the faces go, really, shouldn't they?
They really should, because it ends up being wacky. But here we go. So yeah, we talk about DC Comics, and it is a week 5, and week 5s mean less books. Or at least right now they do. Maybe if November's any indication, that may not be that true forever. But so there's less books this week, and it's just me and Connor. So it's going to be a wacky, kind of weird and different show. So what books do we actually have? We have Wonder Woman number 29 because it was delayed. So hey, that was a mercy killing. We have All-Star Batman 13 because it was delayed. So that's another mercy killing. We do have Supergirl Annual number 1. We have the Darkseid Special number 1, which is one of the Kirby specials that have been coming out this month. So we decided to read that since it was a quieter week. And we had, well, special bit of news for everyone actually here. This is a last minute edition. Basically, David Short, who supports us on Patreon, and he supports us. He's the reason that Connor has to read Red Hood every month over the last few months. Basically sent me a message saying, hey, if I pay double this month, can he do the annual on the 5th week? And I said, of course he can. And so surprise, Connor's Corner's making a bonus appearance on this episode. Connor will be reading Red Hood and the Outlaws annual number 1. That's coming up, so
This is the problem when, even though it's a 5th week in August, the Patreon, like when we record this, it becomes September, so he gets away with it.
Yeah, because we're actually in September now, because the Patreon started its new month. This was possible, so this is delightful. It's delightful. So that's a bonus. And of course, we're going to talk about Green Arrow Year 1, all 6 issues of the miniseries that came out in 2007 by Andy Diggle and Jock. That was the winner of the Patreon vote, because on the 5th weeks we always do a trade or a graphic novel, and that's what won the vote for this month. So that is all the books we're going to be talking about. But we also have questions. I just put a request out on Twitter just a couple of hours ago. Said, hey people, we're recording, we've got a bit of extra time this episode. Anyone want to ask some questions? And we have 4 questions to
and I'm a little concerned because I haven't seen these, so I might be blindsided.
Every podcast I've ever watched where there's questions, the other people don't know the questions before they're asked. Only the host does.
See, I think everyone should know. Level playing field. Put some thought into it.
No, because watching you struggle is part of the fun.
One day you're going to struggle.
I struggle every day. I struggle with the simplest things imaginable. Should see me try to use the washing machine. Nothing but struggle.
Oh, I can imagine. I imagine you have no idea what to do.
The big hole, you put the clothes in, you press a button.
Right, all right, no, stop. We got as far as there's a big hole. Didn't need to go any further than that.
Dear. But so that's what's coming up on this week's show. This weird show where only one of us have read like some of the books, half the books in fact, because I've only read Supergirl. The only one who's read All-Star Batman's Connor, so it's going to be a weird and wacky, wonderful show. I mean, wonderful's debatable, but we're going to get into it. So I suppose, do you want a bit of small talk first? Connor, how was your week? You had a nice week?
Yeah, it was alright. I've been playing some games. I got the Mario and Rabbids for the Switch.
Oh, okay.
It's like a XCOM style, but Nintendoized. Best game I've played from Ubisoft in years. It's fantastic.
I like how that's usually someone's selling point when I say I have no interest. Like, yeah, but it's like XCOM, because they don't like XCOM. In fact, I've been playing XCOM too. That's what I've been playing over the last couple of weeks. And then you say Nintendoized, and I'm like,
It's actually you need to put thought and skill into it. Still, it's not easy. When I say that, it's
sure.
It's got a different cutesy skin on it. Yes.
I'm under no impression that Nintendo games are easy. Like from the ones I have played, they do eventually get quite tough. It's not a question of skill. It's more the cartoony characters and the style of humor that I'm not particularly fond of.
The rabbits are pretty annoying because they're basically like minions, but they're kind of the bad guys, and you're mostly shooting them. So that's pretty fun.
There are a lot of minions actually. Now that you bring that up.
Yeah, I also got the Call of Duty World War II beta because I haven't played that in years, and it's like, oh, this is pretty good.
Fair enough. Like I said, I played a bit of XCOM 2. Otherwise, though, I've been typically busy. Me and Tim are doing a lot of horror movies for October, so we've been kind of scheduling out that and picking what we're doing and all that kind of thing. And and obviously we've had the extra TV because we had The Tick, which, you know, again, it's an Amazon show, so that all dropped at once. So it's been...
That was pretty good as well.
That was pretty good. I recommend The Tick on Amazon if you haven't watched it. 6 episodes of the first season are up because they split it in
wish
half.
we'd got more.
Yeah, we do wish we got more. But so no, I guess we'll crack into the books then. What little of them we have. So Wonder Woman 29 is up first. Shea Fontana rating with David Messina and Inaki Miranda on art. So this is the fourth part. I had to think about that of this arc, and we ended the last issue with this cliffhanger of all the female assassins coming for Wonder Woman. We don't know what they're wanting her for yet, or why there's a bounty on her. We do now after this issue, but we didn't at the time. And we start. I'd say the first half of the issue is an action sequence. It's Wonder Woman and Etta fighting off these various villains. You got Cheshire, you got Plastique, you got bunch of characters. You have some other tiger theme villain that I didn't know.
Yeah, she's like some cat goddess thing.
With laser eyes. So
yeah, pretty cool. No, I'm
right.
just looking. They're actually called Cat Eye.
Oh, she's called Cat Eye. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. New one for me. That's fair.
Clues. I mean, we probably could have guessed that, really.
I mean, probably, but I mean,
we got laser eyes. We got cat.
Yeah, but she could also just be called, like, I don't know, White Tiger. You want to have a White Tiger?
I guess.
I don't know. You could call her a number of things. I thought it was an okay issue. It sort of brought into where this arc is kind of going. Basically, there's a lot of narration from Wonder Woman about how she kind of feels like the media, the press, are always talking about her as if they own her, as if she is like owes something to the world, like that her body's the big topic of discussion. Like they talk about her thighs or her waist, like all these things. Obviously it's a very meta commentary on sort of the way that the press like obsess over the female body image. It's very much what it's about. But it comes into, because when we find out what the assassins actually wanted her for, is that much like the Doctor from issue 2, which I do still think was a really weak issue, they want her DNA basically to hopefully cure diseases and cure various things, and all the things they could do with that genetic information. And I like that idea. The idea that Wonder Woman then decides to, no, I'm just going to go willingly, because if I can actually help save people,
yeah.
like if I can give some
I'm
blood,
volunteer.
Yeah, like I'll do it. But it does kind of tie into this idea of like she feels that her body's not her own. Like other people are taking it for themselves.
Right. The idea that maybe they should have just asked.
Like, yeah, sure, yeah, that's a fair point. But yeah, it ties nicely into that theme. So. Yeah. I thought this was a solid issue. I'd probably say I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the last one, just from an action point of view. Like, the action's fine in the first half of the issue. It wasn't wowing me, though.
I don't think it has any of those standout moments that the last issue had.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I feel.
But it's consistently fun.
Yeah. Steve shows up, Wonder
Woman's bit late to help out, as usual.
Which they have a little joke about, and Wonder Woman's just happy to see him. But that's pretty much it. She basically decides at the end, okay, we've tracked this guy who's like hiring everyone, like his son or whatever was suffering from a disease, and he's been trying to work to fight this. And she kind of compares it to like in war, like you sacrifice like X number of soldiers for the greater good. Like, is that such a weird sacrifice? Like, even if she dies from like giving them a cure to cancer, for example, like, is that worth the death? Like, if everyone ever who gets cancer can now be cured from it. I mean, from a pure cold logistic point of view, it is, but I imagine there'll be more of a twist to this though next issue. We'll find out the actual.
Right, it can't be that easy, can it?
Yeah. We'll find out it's not as simple as that, and that not only is there a risk of her dying, maybe they'll also be like, oh no, they also want to use it to like weaponize people and like for
Probably,
more nefarious means.
The government, and then also just the idea that it'll be there's always more, isn't it? They go, oh, we can cure this, but then we can do more. What else can we do? And eventually they'll just kind of keep her there because she'll keep volunteering. She'll go, yeah, I want to help.
Yeah. I imagine just from a writing perspective, you have to make it not be that easy. Otherwise, why doesn't she keep volunteering for things like this?
Yeah.
So I think you write yourself into a hole if you say, "Oh, her blood can just cure things." Idea. But it's a nice idea to explore. Like from her questioning, like what her purpose is and what she should be doing. It's an interesting thing to bring up.
And of course, there's no guarantee that it will work either.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like so, there's that. Is an easy way out. Like it's they're theorizing that it might, but
yeah,
you never know.
Yeah. Art was pretty consistent with the previous issues for the most part.
I think considering this issue was the same artist as last issue, but the first two were different. I think tonally they've been very similar and kept a strong feel across them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I thought it was fine. It didn't like blow me away, but I definitely like. I think issues 1 and 3 were really strong, and I just mean 1 and 3 of this arc. Obviously, it's actually like 26 and 28, but like I think these are really strong. I think this one was really solid. The second issue of the arc being the only one that I felt really dipped for me in terms of like quality.
That's fair. I definitely think that was the weakest issue.
Yeah. So, but that's it. So there you go. That's Wonder Woman 29. Which will take us on to All-Star Batman number 13, which obviously Connor's the only one that's been reading this since...
A while.
A while, yeah. It's actually not been that many issues, but it keeps getting delayed. In actual time, it's been a long time. So
it still typically comes out every month, though. It might have missed maybe 1 month.
I think it did miss a month, and I think there's been a lot of months where it's slipped from week 2 to 3, and then in this case it was week 2 to week 5.
Yeah, so it feels like a long time between issues, but I think it's still mostly on schedule in terms of where it should be for months.
Anyway, this was Scott Snyder and Rafael Albuquerque. At least they're the main people on the book. I think there's a backup.
The others are just for the backup, which I didn't read.
Oh, fair enough. So, main story then.
I've not been reading the backups in a while, to be honest. No, we're still on this. The Alfred story, and a lot more of this is actually the past stuff in Alfred's youth, in that program that he was going through to be some kind of soldier, like a Batman prototype sort of thing was kind of what it was. But again, tying in with this whole theme of Bruce being his son, it's all about his relationship with his mentor in this program, and the idea that ultimately it boils down to how the mentor's like, yeah, I keep trying this, and they keep dying because they're too worried about attachments. So ultimately, we've got to cut those ties, and it's this comes up a lot. Alfred's kind of thinking, maybe if I retired, maybe if I left, Bruce would kind of give it up because he wouldn't. I'm not there to facilitate it and enable him. And but in the past, it actually boils down to his mentor goes off to assassinate Alfred's dad. It's like literally cut all ties. It's like, well, if you've got nothing left to care about, then you'll devote everything to this, which is kind of how Bruce has been.
Yeah, going out of your way to do it though is another whole other matter.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but it's a real nice seeing Alfred as this spy story. It's a lot of fun seeing him go through all this training missions and stuff, and it's all about the trust between the pair, and it feels very Batman and Robin sort of the idea that they have to trust each other. And
is all the story flashback?
Not all of it, just about 8% this issue.
It's just because the cover is like this neon-looking Batman fight, and I'm like, where does that fit into all this Alfred story?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
That guy that he's fighting on there, that's Briar, who was Alfred's mentor.
Right, okay, so he's here in present day as the villain.
He's here in present day in the villain as well, and he's coming after Bruce, and they're having a bit of a tussle, which is kind of secondary to what the story is. It's kind of just there because it's like, we got to have some Batman action, which is fine, but it's really not that interesting. The Batman side of things, there's the best stuff that comes from Alfred's reactions to seeing what Batman does, like when Batman stops these two bikers and tries to commandeer one of their bikes because things are going wrong, and Alfred's just talking about how like they just stop because he has a presence and things like that. Those things are really quite effective.
Okay.
But the art's gorgeous again, as always, because Albuquerque, he really plays with the shadows and stuff in the spy stuff, and it's the most interesting Alfred stuff I've seen in a while. But the Batman fight's kind of underwhelming, though. I'll be honest.
Fair enough. Yeah, because is the next one the last one? Does it end at 14?
I think 15.
15, okay.
Because this is part 4. I think I don't remember this being a 5-part thing.
I'm just curious because like just where it is in the story, like how much is left. This is it does make All-Star Batman feel like this weird like hodgepodge of like it was meant to be longer, and I know they're going to do this like prestige thing instead for whatever the next story was going to be. It's just kind of funny to me that it feels less like an ongoing series and more like just a couple of arcs, and that's all it.
It's true. Because, and I think even the arcs have felt very separate. Like the first arc was, which that was the
Two-Face one with the road trip. Yeah.
So that was like one whole thing, and then the second one was the one with all the the separate artists.
Yeah, I read like half of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which was mostly individual issues, but then kind of connected to a larger story.
It feels like it's been like a series of different mini-series that just happen to be held together with the same name.
Yeah, because I do remember when they originally like announced it, the pitch was kind of All-Star Batman referred to a team of all-star artists. It was like a showcase for the art. And I think it's, other than the first arc, that's been true.
Yeah, because Romita Jr., yeah.
Yeah, but pretty much all the artists on the second arc were great, and you had a good variety. And then, Albuquerque, who doesn't love Albuquerque doing Batman?
I would struggle to find such a person. But no, fair enough. So that's All-Star Batman. Now I get to talk for a bit. And with Supergirl Annual number 1, which is Steve Orlando writing, and it's actually Steve Pugh on the art. So obviously different artists given it's an annual. And this is actually just the next chapter of the story. This is the next chapter of the current ongoing plot.
So it's just an essential piece then?
Yeah, there's no backup. It's just all main story. It's, the whole thing. Which actually means there's a lot happened in it, because there's, a lot more
pages.
Yeah. So we ended the last issue with Supergirl, after her powers have been messing up, but she still goes to fight Grundy, who's like causing chaos in the streets as part of the whole Fatal 5 plan. And she goes to fight Grundy, and some fighting happens, but then Indigo shows up, as a hero. Like, she's like, no, Supergirl, you're causing more trouble, I'll save the city. So the whole kind of plan's kind of coming together where you see, alright, they're going to discredit Supergirl, and they're going to make Indigo look like a better hero, to like, the opinion in the national city can like really take a turn for Supergirl. And this all comes together because we had Emerald Empress show up at the DEO, and the rest of her plan there, she actually breaks in, and because Director Chase has been so paranoid and kind of Batman-y, for lack of a better word, she's been recording everything that's been going on in there. So Emerald Empress actually uses the Catco app, which Selena the Sorceress acquires from Cat, because she showed up there at the end of the last. So there's a lot of things going on at the same time. There's a lot of things that sort of intersect and kind of come together. But basically, she releases footage of Supergirl talking to Zor-El in the tank, being like, "Oh, I'll never give up on you, Father. No matter what you've done, I will always try and sort of rehabilitate you and bring you back." And this footage is leaked out to everyone through a Catco app, and the entire city just starts distrusting, hurling abuse at Supergirl. And Supergirl has to fly off and deal with it. Her powers are still acting up as well, so there's multiple reasons for her to fly off. But she flies off to Dr. Veritas, who she's like, "You need to help me with these powers. You need to help me get control of this." and she has some ideas about firing lasers into her. Basically, she figures out that whatever she was shot with, like those cells are causing her powers to overload. They're basically, instead of just absorbing the regular amount of solar energy, they're absorbing and they keep it basically ever expanding, and it's causing her powers to go uncontrollably powerful. So she's basically going to deal with that, and she does. She basically says, "Okay, I've not actually your powers are actually still more than they were before. I can't actually reverse them, but they'll stop expanding. So now you can control it. You can just learn to control the new power level." But there's some fun stuff comes out of this, because while she's there, Magog and Selena the Sorceress show up there to try and get to Supergirl, try and kill her while she's there. And instead, Dr. Veritas has a plan in place. Laron, the Kryptonian werewolf, is her defences, and he jumps out. So we get some Laron action fighting Magog and Selena the Sorceress. And Supergirl eventually, obviously, she gets better. She's like, okay, I need to go and deal with Emerald Empress, who's taken over the DEO. She's sealed it from the outside. So Supergirl sneaks in from underground, only to find out that the door's open from within from Eliza and Jeremiah, who were already in the building. So she's got some allies inside, and Supergirl has to fight her way through the building. She gets to Emerald Empress, and the big sort of conclusion of the issue is that Emerald Empress wants her to watch her father die, because we actually get some flashbacks in this issue of Emerald Empress's backstory, where she was a slave, but then the eye showed up and she got all powerful. She killed her slaver, and she found out she had one family member left, which was her father, but her father was killed. And apparently it's the descendants, or maybe not the actual family descendants, but it's certainly followers of Supergirl who actually kill her father, and that's why she's so determined to deal with her. And basically, she kind of brings up that, someone tried to convince me that Saturn Girl is what I'm supposed to deal with, but she's got this personal vendetta for Supergirl, which is why she's doing all this. And it turns out, actually, that she lied to the rest of the Fatal Five. She told all of them, Supergirl is going to cause this and cause that, and she's going to be your end and your doom. All lies. She just made it all up so she had a team, and she's the only one that's actually directly affected by Supergirl in the future. So that's all going on, and it also brings up that Selena the Sorceress's powers are actually stopping Clark from knowing about any of this going on. He's just unaware that anything's happening in National City, because her powers are making him not see it. So, I don't know if they need to explain that, but I'll take it. It's nice.
It's one of those things where you don't need it, but at least it's interesting when they do.
Yeah, they've thought about it and they've said, okay, so we want a reason why Superman's not just showing up, and that's why.
Yeah.
But there's I like the art quite a bit. It's not maybe, I really like the original artist on Supergirl, but I like the art in here as well. The action's quite good. There's a lot of the opening big 2-page spread is Grundy's basically lifted up the road, and he's using it as a shield while it's still connected at the other end. So he's just sort of lifted up a bit of road, and it's a cool image.
That's pretty cool. Yeah,
it looks good. So that's good. Lara and the werewolf is pretty cool, but she always was. But the action plays quite well. So the story basically boils down to Supergirl's been keeping her evil father sort of on life support with the intention of bringing him back, and it's revealed, and the city's not very happy about it. So she's going to have to set out and convincing them that that's, because they didn't even know it was her father. They didn't even know that piece of information. So she's going to have to convince them and win them back over from that. Interesting little tidbits though. So Ben doesn't turn against her. Ben goes to Cat Grant and is like, no, we need to deal with this, Cat. We need to get control back of the system and try and fix this. And Cat's actually pissed at Supergirl, so she lied. She we supported her, we gave her a public image, and she's been withholding these secrets from us. It almost feels like a politician's had a a skeleton out the closet kind of thing. It has that kind of feel to it. And Ben's like, no, we can let her try and solve this after we get control of the things. So they go back to Catco, because they're at that Cat's place, and they go back to Catco. And he's like, okay, so I assume you have an override for the building because it's locked everyone out. And she's like, yeah, in a manner of speaking. And Cat pulls out a hammer from her purse and just goes to town on the door. That's how we end her part of the story. But I appreciate it. I enjoy the image of Cat Grant just pulling out a hammer and being like, yep. I actually thought, I actually had to go back and reread the last panel, because I for some reason I thought she was because it set up earlier on that Emerald Empress, Selena the Sorceress can shapeshift, or at least give the illusion that she's someone else. And I thought it was her for a second, because it actually looked like she was going to hit Ben over the head with a hammer. And then I went back and reread it and go, oh, she's just going to hit the door. Okay, it makes more sense now. But I actually thought it was just like the heel turn from behind, like, oh, it's fine. And
I like how she'd go for the hammer.
it's very Cat Grant. She's not a subtle person.
No, it's true.
She goes for the big blunt object. That's who Cat Grant is. But no, so all fun stuff. Little character beat. Well, Supergirl's like being hit with these lasers, which, as she points out, like this is the first time she's had surgery since she was a kid because Kryptonian on Earth. But it hurts. It hurts a lot. This laser that she's hitting her with is like super painful, and she's in. Dr. Veritas is like, oh, you have to like try and fight through this. You have to think of something, like hold on to an image that'll help you get through it. And she actually thinks of Ben. So obviously we're planting the seeds of a romance here between Ben and Supergirl, which makes sense because they've been kind of allies and they've had a kind of.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised by this.
I mean, there's no one else in the book that could be a love interest, so it makes sense.
It does.
So no. Overall, I think it was a really fun issue. It felt like a big, it felt like when you have like a TV show and you'll just for whatever reason 1 week they'll just have a double episode in the middle. Yeah. It kind of feels like that. It feels like, oh, it's a big episode, all this. Because I can almost look at this and say, oh, here, I split it in the middle, and this would have been 2 issues. But instead, we got this nice big double this month, so it's fun.
Just adds essentially an extra 2 parts onto the story overall, doesn't it?
Yeah, or at least we get through the next 2 parts quicker because we have the annual.
Well, yeah. I mean, it depends. Assuming it was a 6-issue arc, then it's kind of become 8 essentially.
Well, it depends when no, because it could be a 6-issue arc that becomes a 5-issue thing because there's a double issue in the middle.
Oh yeah, they might take away from it. I'm just, it might have. We might have thought it was 6.
No, but I wouldn't see that as taking away from it though, because you've got the same amount of story. It's just that you've got an issue with double the pages, so now it just fits in the 5.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't see it as taken away. So. But no, I thought it was fun. I liked the first issue. It's a shame Matt's not here to talk about this one because he liked the last issue of Supergirl a lot as well. And I feel like he probably liked this. I guess we'll ask him next week, actually. Unlike usual, he didn't rush to read his books so that he could send his top books because there was no real point this week. Because we're not going to have a top 5 at the end because there's no 5 books to.
No, I was going to say there's not even 5 between us, let alone 5 that we both read.
Oh, there is 5 between us.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm forgetting one.
Yeah, you're forgetting Red Hood.
I am, yeah.
So yeah, there is 5 between us, so that's...
Forgive me for forgetting that one.
But no, so that's the thing. But no, I thought it was fun. I thought the action was big. I thought Supergirl's dilemma, it's kind of like our own compassion. It's kind of like biting her in the ass because everyone else doesn't see it that way. They just see him as a villain, like, oh, he should be, executed or excommunicated or whatever. Like, pick your long word beginning with X. As an EX, not the letter X. Make that clear. I know they're not. I know how they're spelled. They don't begin with the letter X.
I don't know. Sometimes in your brain, I think maybe you did think that.
Look, shut up. Just to wrap up on Supergirl, just another couple of not moments. Just a way to talk about the art a little bit. There's when she's sneaking in to she's in the sewers to get into the DEO from underneath. I really like all the stuff with her in the sewer. It's kind of that thing where it's mostly like her suit looks almost black, but you still see the red as she's like walking about in the shadows and stuff. And I actually really like the expression on her face when she the door opens and it's like her adoptive parents. Like there's this big grin on her face, this elation that she's her parents are there to help. She's not alone in this fight, and that's it's just a really nice moment. And I think the art gets across gets across those expressions really well. There's quite a few moments like that. There's the light cat with the hammer and like just this I'll just storm through this like a wrecking ball kind of emotion on her face. Like it's just
Just out of interest, you said with Kat how you thought at first it was it was going to be like a shapeshift and she was going to attack Ben. Do you think that was a fault of the art for not making it clearer? Or
no,
just your expectations?
I think it's a fault of me just glossing over one of the word balloons more than anything else.
Right. Okay.
Because I think I just kind of glossed over the balloon that mentioned that. Oh, I assume you have like a key to get in here. Like I think I glossed over that panel.
And just saw her pull out the hammer.
Yeah. So I thought she was just going to hit him in the head because of that. But I think that was my bad. I don't think that was on the either the art or the writing.
Right.
That's just me being. Me being a bit of a rush for whatever reason, because
it happens sometimes. But obviously things like that can be down to the art.
It can
making
be.
It clear enough.
It absolutely can be. In this case, I don't think it was though. So no, it was super fun stuff. I mean, I'll say it right now. It's my favorite book of the week. Not that it's saying a whole lot, given the short amount. That said, we're moving on to Darkseid Special, number 1. The main story is by Mark Evanier and Scott Kolins, and I like this a lot actually. This main story.
Yeah, me too. And
so
I like that this is because Kirby's actual 100th birthday would have been this week, just gone. So it kind of feels like they saved the Darkseid one for that week because
it does. It's his
probably
biggest...
the biggest character that from DC at least.
From DC, there. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's fair. And the story here is basically it's a group of characters who have escaped from the orphanage, from old Granny, and Darkseid's pissed and he wants them back. And it does a lot of like stage setting at the start where it's like all this like third person narration talking about just what the life in Apocalypse is like, and how these characters dream about escaping every night, even though it's because we find out it's been 3 years. They've actually been on the run for 3 years, and like they're terrified of being caught, and like Darkseid's actually killing his generals over not finding them, and he eventually sends out the old
Furies,
the female Furies after them. So and the whole thing does feel, pardon the pun, apocalyptic. Just everything about the way, because it talks about how you can't even tell night and day apart most of the time.
Yeah, things like how they never stay in the same place for more than 2 nights because they don't want to make it too easy, so they'll just keep on the move.
And they feel because the main character Michaela, like the main one who escaped, she talks about how she starts her journal every single day with "This is the last day of my life" because she just assumes it will be, and then she says how she feels relieved when she goes to sleep at night, because she's realised that, that's actually wrong. It wasn't the last day of my life. I got at least one more in me. I actually like this a lot. Like I never know how I'm going to feel with stories that are billed as villain centric. And arguably, I don't think this is. I think it is from these characters' perspectives of the.
Right. I think I was going to say it treats Darkseid right, where he's still just this mysterious threat.
Yeah, he's not
there.
He's not the protagonist, and I don't really feel like he ever should be the protagonist. I think that's something with villains that I just have this opinion on, is that the villain should never really be the protagonist of the story. Certainly not.
Right, because then you're kind of rooting for them by nature of them being
Of course, there's anti-heroes, and that's a different ballgame. That, of course, like, you can have them, but I think when you've got someone like Darkseid or even someone like the Joker, when we're talking about Joker movies happening, I don't think they should ever be the protagonist. They should still be. I mean, you can call the movie The Joker, and you can have the Joker be the main threat in it, but they should still be from the perspective of someone else.
Yeah, it can be about the Joker. Like this is definitely about Darkseid. It's the effect that Darkseid has on his world and how people view him and why they feel the way they do. But it does all of that without actually being from Darkseid's perspective. Yeah,
because it all boils up. They eventually capture the characters, and a lot of what Michaela talks about through the issue is how he only has power because people fear him. In fact, he's actually scared that he'll lose that power if everyone ever realizes that. And she actually, she's been captured. She's like down on her knees, and Darkseid's like going to kill her with his old beams, and she's like, "Hey, since I'm about to die, can I like give you my opinion on you?" Is basically what she says, and he's like, "I have seconds. Speak." And she's like, "Yeah, like you actually like you're scared. You're scared that if anyone ever realizes that your power is rooted in them being scared of you, that you'll then lose that power." And he basically is like, "Well, since you're about to die anyway, you're right. Like it's my fear, it's my nightmare every single night that they'd actually realize that if they don't fear me, I have no power, and the only cure for this is for more power, and that's why he has this constant thirst to expand and have more power and all this."
Yeah, that was all just like he was based on Hitler, so he's this dictator, and then like it's the idea that all dictators need power, and whatever they have isn't enough, even though they have their world, their country, whatever it is. It's like it's still, even if there's one thing that rebels against them, it's like okay, they haven't got that complete control. So they always need more until it's complete, but it never can be.
Yeah, because it even starts with this statue of him being defaced.
Right, and that's enough just to let him know that it's like he's not all powerful. He hasn't got all that control that he wants and needs.
Yeah, and of course she actually records this on her mother box, and she throws it out because she's told the one last body that's not been captured yet to be in the outside of the building, or the south side, whatever the side is, and she throws the mother box out with the intention that he can grab it and then play it back to the masses. Now Darkseid gets so terrified, like it's a rare moment of fear for Darkseid where he gets so terrified that he turns and he just shoots his beams down, like, you know, as quickly as he can, and he does get it. He does get it. Now, in the chaos, Michaela does manage to get out, and her and the other guy do run away. But it's like the fact that she got him to admit it, like, even if she didn't get the recording, even if, like, the fact that she put him in that place only for a minute, like, how infuriating is that to him? It's just
absolutely.
It's beautiful stuff.
It really is. It's fantastic.
And it ends with her saying, "Oh, there's a statue over here that I've not redecorated yet," and that's kind of like it's like this final little moment of defiance. So no, the defiance.
We've got him to admit it. We just need to keep fighting because they know it's getting to him.
Yeah, the resistance, you know, continues. Like, it's not dead. Like, and that's kind of the overall point of this show. So, but no, it's
arguably that's kind of when the resistance is born, because obviously before they're just surviving, but here it's like no. He's admitted it. This works. We can do this sort of thing.
Yeah, like as long as it may be, there's a chance of victory. Like, it doesn't seem like it's just like before they couldn't allow themselves to hope anything. Whereas, like, no, he admitted this. So no, and also I like the little tidbits of he's like, yeah, the first escapee from that orphanage just caused me nothing but grief, and it's, you know, quite a little shot of Mr. Miracle. So no, I like that. But no, I liked how the book looked as well. I liked the art. I liked how I liked the tones, all the sort of reds and origins for Apocalypse, and, you know, it felt like they were in the fires of hell like the entire time.
Yeah, I like that when you can see the sky, there's all these orange glows, but whenever they're hiding, it's all like, you know, dark blues, purples, greys. It's all, you know, the idea that they're hiding away from the reality of the world.
Also, it feels very industrial as well. It's like an industrial mixed with hell. It's got a very kind of I don't know, like slave alien planet kind of feel, which is what it is, to be fair. But you know, like, it has that feel to it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, I can almost envision the moment in a movie where it cuts to this planet, and you know right away what type of, like, location it is and the sort of things that are going on there. Everyone's sweaty all the time. Everyone's working. Don't want to be working.
So it's just strong visual design, isn't it? You don't need any more to know what it is.
Exactly. So. No, I really like this story, and because again, like, I had no idea what to expect, because I even think, like, Mark Evanier, like, I don't think I know him from anything.
I know that he's a Kirby historian.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Which is what he's generally known for.
Interesting. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what to expect in terms of writing quality, but sure enough,
delivered, didn't it?
It did. So. I recommend the main story wholeheartedly. There's two backups. Well, there's a backup, and then there's like a reprint of an old Kirby story. I never read the reprint, mainly just due to, I was reading this just before we recorded, so, like, it was kind of.
I haven't been reading any of the reprints. I know they've got a Kirby, the Fourth World, like, they've got like an omnibus coming, which I think has all of his stuff from DC. You know, like his
Fourth World stuff and all that.
Fourth World stuff, and, you know, the Jimmy Olsen stuff's in there, and I think that's coming out at the end of the year. So I've not been reading any of these reprints because I'm just holding off on reading it all in one big go.
That's fair. The backup though is a little OMAC story, where basically the one man OMAC sort of soldier kind of storms the castle, as it were, to his superior because he's been turned into a war criminal. And you get another mention of Brother Eye, which you've been pointing out the last few weeks.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Brother Eye and OMAC, go hand in hand.
Oh, sure, but I just when he actually mentioned Brother Eye, though, I was like, here we go. Connor's going to go on again about how OMAC keeps getting brought up.
See, when it was in the other books, it was interesting. When it's in an OMAC story, it's like, well, yeah, it kind of has to be.
Sure. This was okay. Like, I have no feelings about this little backup one way or the other. There was nothing to really.
Yeah, it wasn't very long, but I really like the art.
Yeah, sure.
It was really nice and clean, and the colours really popped and stood out. It kind of had like an actual Kirby-esque feel to it in the art that some of the others haven't.
Yeah, it felt grand for what it was. It was so short that I didn't really get get time to really attach to anything or care about anything that was going on a great deal. It certainly wasn't bad though.
It was enjoyable enough, but there wasn't much to it.
Yeah. But no, the main story though, Resistance.
It was great.
But I think that's what the title of the story was the Resistance was the title.
No, was it?
On the title page, yeah. That's Darkseid special at number 1, which takes us to Connor's Corner, the bonus Connor's Corner. So you had extra pages of Red Hood to read.
I did.
Was it a backup, or was it all just one big story?
It was all one big story.
You sound delighted by that. So what was the story about, Connor? Actually, I should tell you, Scot Lodbell wrote it, and Tyler Kirkham was on the art, for the record.
I mean, I'll start by, again, I like Kirkham's art.
That seems to be a running theme, that Lodbell keeps getting good artists to do his books.
He does. There's no denying it. They're easy to look at. Which, small mercies, right? Because if it wasn't, then this would be a double punch in the face.
I guess in this case you can. I guess in this case you can actually polish a turd.
You can make it so that the turd looks all right, but it still has a smell. It's still a turd.
It looks appetizing, but you can smell it's nasty.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can smell the reality.
You almost make it sound like the good art's almost a bad thing, like it's trying to trick you into something good, but it's really not. It's really not.
Do you know what it is? It actually leads to a real problem where I have to reread certain pages quite a few times, because I'll just kind of look at the art and go, oh, that looks really nice. And then, how you mentioned in Supergirl you accidentally skipped over that word bubble.
Just that one bubble, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like I do that with about half of them.
Oh, okay.
And then I have to go back and go, shit, what are they talking about? I was just looking at the pretty pictures.
So what was it about? I seen Nightwing was on the cover. Nightwing's in this?
Nightwing is in this. Basically, they're infiltrating a circus for whatever reason. and Jason's like, hey, Nightwing, you know what to do at a circus. Let's get you in.
Okay. So
do you know what else it had that I like?
Oh, go on.
KG Beast.
Okay.
Although he's going by just the Beast now, which I think I knew, but I'd forgotten. I feel like I'd seen it somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it was in All-Star, wasn't it? But I think it was still called KG Beast at the time, was it not?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Maybe
I think I'm sure it mentions a Detective Comics thing.
My head just kind of fills in the KGB, maybe, like part of the title.
Mine does as well. Like, I'm never gonna call him Beast, am I? It's just it's KG Beast.
Yeah, because Beast is an X-Men character.
Right, exactly.
So, all right, go on then. Tell us all about it. Infiltrating a circus with Nightwing. Yep,
pretty much. So it kind of starts with just Dick's going and watching their performance. They're doing various things. Bizarro's being like a strong man. Jason's on a bike going through a ring of fire.
Oh, so they're actually impersonating
their performance, yeah.
Oh, okay, circus people, okay.
And
right.
That's how they get Dick involved. They're like, oh, he's really good at acrobatics. Like, he's got a thing.
He's really good at the acrobatics.
They give him a costume, and I think they call him like Flippy Flop the Clown or something like that. Flippy Flop the Acrobatic Clown, I'm sorry. And it's this awful, horrendous patchwork thing.
See, I would have taken that opportunity to make a little wink callback to his original outfit. That awful collar thing from the...
I mean, there is a awful collar, but it's not anything like that.
Okay.
But it's bad, it basically, is the point.
Okay. Continue.
But yeah, you basically have the three of the main three sharing a trailer, and Bizarro's got like he's wearing these like denim overalls, kind of like he was on, if you know how you think of like Superman on a farm.
Okay, yeah.
Like he's wearing those, and he's cooking some beans, and he's really proud of his beans. And the others are just like, cool. No one else cares, but he's really, really proud of himself for cooking. I don't know. Again,
Fair.
Bizarro is the high point, and thankfully there's not much Artemis. She kind of starts hitting it off with Nightwing at one point, and I'm like, look, I know everyone's into Dick, but please don't do this.
Yeah, who doesn't love Dick? I mean,
Exactly. But thankfully they don't. So, saved. Just breathe. Just let us sing in that. There was actual relief when I was reading this.
go on. You've not told me enough story to fill an annual yet. Where's this going?
Do you know what the problem is? I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of just this side story where they're like, hey, there's KG Beast and we're at this circus, and they're like, oh, Dick, you can come and help us because you know what to do in a circus. You'll know how to find the truth.
The story must end somewhere at the end of the issue. Like, what happens? What's the purpose? What does it build up to? Are they infiltrating the circus because KG Beast is like hiding in one and they have to find him, or?
This is the point. It's never really clear as to why they're there. Like they seem to know something's going on, but they don't really seem to tell us.
Is this a part one? Is there a part two in like the next issue of the book?
No, not that I know of. It basically ends with them taking out KG Beast. That's it. They're just there to take him out.
So why are they in the circus?
Because KG Beast's at the circus. So the book opens with a little intro of him in the circus.
All right, so I was right. So they're infiltrating the circus.
Well, yeah, but he's just.
So what's so confusing about it?
No, hang on. He's not in the circus. This is why I was confused, because he's not in the circus. There's an intro of KG Beast on a boat, and then it cuts to them in the circus, and it's like, what's going on?
Aye, but when they get him at the end, where is he?
At the end, they're at the circus, but he's still he's in his full outfit. He's got all his guns and his big sword,
so
and
they must have known that he was going to be at the circus.
They must have done. It doesn't ever tell me why.
Sure, but I'm not sure why he's so confused. Like, for whatever reason, they've got
I just feel like there's supposed to be some detective work going on here.
Right.
But there's not. It just kind of happens. It feels very convenient.
I feel like you've been missing more bubbles. I feel like you've missed key information here.
No, I definitely haven't, because I had to read half it twice to make sure.
So they're at the circus. They're infiltrating the circus because they know KG Beast is going to be at the circus.
Yeah.
So why is KG Beast at the circus? Is he just there to enjoy the circus and watch? Is he there to kill someone, and that's why they're intervening?
He is there. This is where it gets confusing. They're like, they don't know necessarily that it's KG Beast. They're like, oh, there's something shady going on.
So is someone going to be assassinated at the circus?
Well, they never say assassinated. They're like, oh, we know stuff's going on, and there's things that are strange, and it's just the problem is Jason never wants to tell Dick the whole thing, because it's like, they're supposed to be brothers, but they don't really, they don't get along. So we never get the full thing of like what it really is. It's like every time he goes to, they get interrupted, and this is why I'm really confused as to what the point of the issue is, because it actually cuts from Jason saying he needs his help, like reluctantly admitting that he needs his help, and they're both like, yeah, maybe I could help, maybe I won't, sort of thing, and Artemis is like, look, come on, you're both gonna do it, you might as well just get on with this and help, and then they get interrupted, and then it literally cuts to them sitting all around a campfire. And Jason's going, hey, shouldn't we be finding the bad guys? And Dick's like, yeah, this is a circus. It's all about community. You gotta talk to them, let them know and get into them that way. But it never actually tells me what the threat was in the scene where it's supposed to. It really is a bad issue in that sense, because it fails.
I'll have to take your word for it, because I'm not willing to read it to find out.
You have so then you have them all just kind of bonding with various circus people. Like you have Bizarro he's into the woman playing some instrument, a fiddle, and she's got a little scarf up over her mouth, like a the sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So and he's like proper into her, and Jason's like, hey, go talk to her, and he's like, no, he's like, it's an order. He's like, fine. And he goes over and he's being all nice, and she takes the thing off. It's like she's a bearded lady, which is why she's in the circus. And she's like, oh, even here they're all still a bit like dicks to me. And he's like, nah, it's fine. And they start making out.
So Bizarro's making out with the bearded lady, okay.
Yep. That's actually how the issue ends. Like, it ends on them talking about him making out with the bearded lady and going, hey, did you get a number? And he goes, yes. It was 8. That's the end of the issue.
It's not a bad joke. Did you get a number? Yeah, it was 8. Like, that's a funny Bizarro joke.
It's pretty good, but it's just strange that the entire last page is about Bizarro making out with the bearded lady. Dick's gone. He's like, yeah, we got the KG beast. We put aside our differences. I suppose we can do it when we have to because there are actual bad guys, and you're not really one of them. And you're doing pretty well with Bizarro. You're kind of being a decent big brother to him. And then we just get to Bizarro making out with the bearded lady jokes. It's so strange.
Okay. Well, I guess that wraps up.
It's kind of a mess of an issue because it just kind of things just happen
with no context for why they're happening. Sure.
Right.
I get you.
Fight scenes look nice though.
Yeah, you get Kirkham doing the art, so
yeah,
makes sense. The fighting looks good. All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap up the actual new books for the week at under an hour by my count, which is weird because we're used to having so many more books. So that takes us on to the trade, the long form book that we're going to talk about, which was voted for by our patrons, and that is Green Arrow Year 1, written by Andy Diggle and art by Jock. This came out in 2007, and is the story of Oliver Queen ending up on the island and kind of turning from a rich, idiot, drunk playboy into someone who's a bit more fearless and actually has a purpose in life, and also green and arrows and bows and that kind of thing. Essential elements of the Green Arrow.
Of Green Arrow,
yes.
Yes, I think they might be.
Yes. But aye. So, I'd never read this before, so this was the first time for me. You'd read this before though, right?
Yeah, I had. I'd already known that I like this quite a lot, so I was quite happy with this choice.
Yes, this was a first time for me. There's no reason why I hadn't read it. It just never got
just
around
hadn't got around to it. Yeah, we've all got plenty of those.
Yeah, so obviously, first things first, the art is gorgeous. Like Jock is a man who knows what he's doing. I was almost disappointed the rest of the book was on a tropical island because the first issue's got quite a lengthy bit in the snow, and I'm like, man, I kind of want more snow scenes for the rest of this.
I will say, my biggest problem with Jock's stuff happens to be, I think it is in like the first issue, where like there's a lot of people, and I think Jock's faces and expressions can be a bit lacking at times because he does so well with shadows and angular movement. So I think when it's at the start where it's people in a room talking, I think he suffers a little bit for that.
There's like a sort of fundraiser scene where it's like a party and there's all these people. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. The first issue is basically setting up that Oliver is like this thrill-seeking billionaire, but he has like the easy out. Like when things just start to get a little bit too tough, I'll call in the helicopter and just go away. Like that's the whole thing. He's on this like expedition with what's the guy's name? I'm forgetting now. Hackett. There you go. And Hackett's like his sort of bodyguard, helper, sort of survival expert who he brings along on these things, and it's basically like, okay, yeah, you want the thrill, but you don't actually you've got a safety net. You've got a giant safety net which you're not willing to take away. And Hackett's going to make this deal to like put money into like China White's empire. And it's it's presented as a sort of legal deal, but it's kind of off books. It's kind of it's offshore accounts. Like so, he wants to go.
It's sketchy, yeah.
It's sketchy, grey area, and he wants to. I mean, it's more than a grey area. I mean, it's that much money. It's very much millions and millions of dollars.
But
laundering.
He doesn't really hide it. Oliver's like, yeah, this isn't really, like he knows it's not right, but he's like, yeah, whatever.
If anything, he's like, oh, there's the adventure. Yeah, I'll go with you on the boat, and we can go do this, and we'll go.
Right, and he's like, no, you shouldn't come on the boat. This if you get implicated in all of this. You don't really want to be there.
But of course, the twist at the end of the first issue is that Hackett was actually going to steal this $14 million, and Oliver forcing his way onto the boat is actually a problem, because now he has to take care of Oliver. So he goes to kill Oliver, and he can't quite just shoot him in the face. He feels a little bit too...
Even though he's outright ordered to put bullets in his head, he's like...
Yeah. China White says that over the phone, like, put bullets in his head twice. Like, that's how definite she wants the conclusion to be, and make sure he's gone. But he just dumps him overboard instead. And of course, that's actually the end of the issue, but we will start issue 2 with him waking up on the beach. He's at this island, and from there we start the sort of the main part of the story. But that's kind of the issue. And of course, while he's on the island, he ends up having an ally, one of the sort of the slaves who's been working on it turns out to be like opium, like, these big opium fields that China White's doing in this like old inactive volcano. The island's been like written off the map because of like bomb tests that used to be done here, so it's completely off the books, it's off the record. And so he gets that ally who helps him kind of like recuperate a little bit when he's like delirious. Although for the first little while he's kind of castaway in it, where he's on his own, he's just having to make things, and he makes like a sort of makeshift bow.
I don't think he really gets with them till like issue 4 maybe. So it's like there's a good 2 issues of him kind of on his own surviving.
Yeah, and I think the end of issue 3 is where like there's a cliffhanger of like, oh, there's people here, or there's something going on like that. But issue 2 is certainly entirely he's on his own, and he's made his own stuff. He's got this little green like bit of fabric he's put over his head to like shield him from the sun. But of course it's the green hood, which gives us the thing. And it sets up in issue 1 that he's a fan of Robin Hood. And Hackett even points out the irony. He's like, yeah, but you're meant to give some back to the poor. Like, it's not just like that's the whole thing of Robin Hood. So again, a lot of the story's him kind of learning to not be an entitled dick. Yeah. So, but no. So all that stuff's pretty fun. Again, all Gords. A lot of it's like him on his own. There's narration, of course, but a lot of it's him like silently like running through the trees and the beach and making his stuff and like killing something so he can eat it, and these various other things. And he throws up as well, if I remember right. Like he takes one bite of a fish that he's caught and he ends up throwing it all up because he's not prepared for the raw fish. Doesn't have a chef preparing it for him.
I think it's somewhat amusing that this is the choice that's been picked for just for the sake of discussion. Because if you are a supporter of us on Patreon, you'll have seen our last month's bonus episode was Superman Earth 1, and there was a lot of discussion about how that was compared to Man of Steel, based on they're both very similar themes and ideas. Yeah. And of course, this one it's unavoidable to talk about now without referencing how it influenced Arrow.
Yeah, I absolutely is, and that was something that was in my head. It was kind of this weird thing where I'm like, this book is doing absolutely nothing wrong with what it's doing. Because whereas Superman Earth 1 makes a lot of the same mistakes that Man of Steel would go on to make, this one is playing with a lot of similar ideas but isn't making the mistakes. It's actually pretty solid. It keeps it condensed down to this one story on the island. It's him being there for, I don't know, weeks, months, whatever it is. It's not...
Maybe a year, because there's a while of survival just on his own.
Yeah, but it's definitely not as stretched out, and it doesn't, because one of the things that Arrow did is they kept having these flashbacks to him in the island, and by the time you got to like season 5, like there'd been so much plot like happening on this island. So many different people have came and gone, and like Russians, Chinese, and like love interests who'd lived and died, and an ally who became a villain, and like there was so much that went on like all this time. Yeah. And it was hard not to think about that and groan a little bit. I'm like, oh great, we're on the island and we're doing islandy things. But no, it's straightforward. It's to the point. It's like, Hackett finds out he's like, because we find out that he's working with China White. China White's the one here, which is the one big coincidence that I think I'll maybe pull the book up on, is that when you realise, oh, it's China White and Hackett that are using this island, it's like, okay. I mean, it makes sense to a point, because obviously he was maybe on that direction on the boat. That's where he was sailing to.
That's where he was going. Yeah. So he ended up there as well, because presumably he did it towards the end of the journey. Yeah.
But it was just, there was like a sort of moment where it was like, oh, China White's, and I'm like, okay, right. I'll give you the one big coincidence.
I mean, to be fair, you said, oh, China White was on the phone to Hackett telling him to kill him, but I think it was radio. So, that's shorter distance.
Oh, sure.
So they have to be close to the island already for that to happen.
No, it makes sense when you actually think about it logically and why. But there was just like a moment when I read, oh, China White's here, okay, right, fair enough.
And you're like, oh, really?
It felt like a big coincidence at the time. It's not actually that coincidental when you actually take into account everything that's set it up. And like you say, it's probably short range because he was probably on the way to that island. I don't know. It gave me a moment where I was like, okay, right, fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, he has this ally who's a pregnant woman who's like been sneaking away from the camp, and we find out how badly China White treats them. How like her husband or boyfriend, or the father of her child, tried to escape, and he got caught, and he's basically been fed to rats. He's been like months just down in this pit.
Yeah, it was horrifying because she goes on about how the rats used to be small enough they can fit through the bars and leave, but then as they ate, they became so fat they couldn't get through, so they just bred in the cage, and then there was more and more of them to eat him.
The way it's told is quite cool though, because actually you see her threatening Hackett with this death, and like this guy's down here who tried to escape, but you don't actually know it's the the husband.
Yeah, not till later.
It's later on where she tells the story from her point of view that he tried to escape and then they caught him, and we don't know what he did or how
they just heard him screaming.
Yeah,
and you're going, he suffered a rough fate.
We'd already seen the other side of it, so it was a really effective way of telling that story. That's cool. And obviously a big part of it is that Oliver at one point actually finds his boat that's washed up on shore, and he could leave. He could get on the boat and just go, but he actually makes the choice to turn around and go and try and save the people who are held captive and fight China White and everyone else. So he has that heroic moment, which is one of the big things that we said that Superman Earth 1 was missing. There was that choice to be a hero.
Right, because I say this is, again, to compare it to Superman, it's an origin story.
Oh, it is. Well, it's called Year One. So
right, exactly. So it's, if you've got to have that defining moment in an origin story, for us at least, for a superhero to make that choice, and otherwise they're kind of not becoming a hero for us, I think.
Yeah, otherwise they're just kind of going along with the motions, whereas here it feels like it feels almost that to a point where he's kind of just thrown into it with this woman, and he kind of tries to protect her because she helps him, because he gets sick and
he gets his arm snapped.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. She nurses him back to health, and he even gets reliant on the opium because she uses that to help with the pain. So he has some delirious moments.
Leads to a great, really trippy page.
Go on.
Just the page where you get the views of when he's on the opium, and it's kind of everything's all warped, and it's kind of like an acid trip sort of look.
Yeah, and of course he gets his bow snapped as well, the one that he made. But he eventually, when he gets back to the ship, he happened to just buy that bow in the auction at the start of the book in the first issue, and he's like, okay, it was time for me to use this, and that's when he sort of suits up a little bit more, and the big final issue is he takes the boat round to their big base that's got a big entrance, and he sneaks in, and he tries to be stealthy, but then very quickly he's like, okay, stealthy's not me, and he ends up just shooting the big tank that blows up.
Yeah, hit all the fuel tanks.
Chaos reigns, and it's returned as well, because then the pregnant woman on the boat, when she's got a chance to ride this big boat away, she's like, no, we're not leaving him. We're staying for the Green Arrow, which, by the way, that's how he gets his name, because basically the legend of the one who's fighting back spreads amongst these people, and in their language they call him something, but it translates as the Green Arrow.
Yeah.
So
nice. that was a good reason for a name, actually.
It was a nice moment when she told him what it meant, because she says, "Oh, we call you this," and she says something in this language, and he sort of guesses, "Oh, is it drunk asshole fights dragon and fails?" He has this guess, and she's like, "No, it means the Green Arrow," and it's like, okay. Because I think that's one of the challenges for me that a lot of origin stories face. Is there's the moment where the hero gets their name, and do I roll my eyes? Does it justify the title?
Do they choose it themselves, and that can feel cheesy? Does it come from just the press, but that can feel really cliche and overdone?
It's this thing. I expect the press with Superman because it's always been that way, so that's his, right?
Yeah.
So I don't roll my eyes at that because that's how it should be. With Batman, he chooses it himself because he wants to build this myth on his own. That's part of his build-up, his reason for doing what he does. So, but then it's once you start doing those things again with other characters, it feels like, okay, that's Superman's way of doing it. So you're just doing the same thing.
It's just a knockoff version.
Yeah. Whereas this feels relatively unique. The idea that he's saving this particular group of people who have built up a myth of who he is.
Yeah, it was the idea these arrows are green because he made them out of all this scrap and stuff that he found in this burnt down village.
Yeah, I think he was using leaves to bound them, so that was giving them the green appearance and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a cool reason for it.
Yeah, and obviously he takes that on because of course he does.
Yeah, and it's for a lot of the issue he's going around in the Green Hood, but obviously in this case it's just
circumstantial.
It just happens to be a piece of green fabric that he found, and he uses that to protect his head from the sun because it's very hot on this desert island.
Yeah, exactly. So no. So we spoke a lot about the art, obviously, going through it. There's a lot of different things throughout. There's obviously this, like I said, the snow at the start of the book in the first issue. You've got the ocean. You have a lot on the island, of course, but you've got the island in a different set of time. Like I will say, the water typically looks very good. Like I like the. I think it's the cover to issue 1. I think that it's him standing in this water.
It is. It's gorgeous, isn't it?
It's absolutely fantastic looking.
For covers, I think 1 and 6 are my favourite covers, because 6 is him inside the shape of the Green Arrow.
Yeah. Obviously, the colours it plays with, it plays with a lot of greens when he's doing stuff, but there's obviously a lot of yellows and oranges when it's like dealing with the harsh sun of the island, and it's you really get the idea that they're blinded by the light. Like it uses a lot of white as well to really kind of sell the idea that like everyone has to cover their eyes. Like it's really uncomfortably bright.
Yeah, it's the first issue as well. There's not a lot of defined color. It's a lot of white backgrounds, and it's kind of this idea that he's just kind of neutral at this point. He's just kind of exists. He hasn't got any color to define him. Yeah,
it's worth mentioning. I just noticed in looking through the pages here that moment where he decides to be a hero and he burns the boat after he takes the bow off of it. That's actually the end of issue 5. That's the big go home moment. It's like the big cliffhanger where he decides to be the hero, get into the last issue. So in terms of structure, that's a very good place to.
It is, because it means that final showdown. This is it. It's all built to this moment.
He's made his choice. Like he had his chance to go away, and he decided not to take that. So it's very good stuff. Also, I will point out as well, again to compare it to Arrow, there's a very conscious choice from him here to not kill people. Like you see him, he puts arrows through people, but it's a lot of shoulders, a lot of arms and legs. When he's given the choice, to, when Hackett comes to find him, this is when he gets his arm snapped. It's this after this showdown with Hackett that he has a chance to kill Hackett, and he's like, you really think that's who I am, a killer. So again, it's he's more of a hero in this than he ever has been on the show.
Immediately, he's like, look, I'm a dick, but I'm not a murderer.
Yeah, exactly. And he even talks about how he wanted revenge, he thought about it for months, getting his hands around his throat. But ultimately, that's not who he really is. It's easy to think that when someone does something as bad as he has to him, he's taken his life from him, left him for dead. So real good stuff. But yeah, so like I was just saying, the use of the colours, the use of all these different things. In fact, when he finds the boat, actually, it's been very green. He's been he's just fought off some people, but then it goes really purple. There's 3 pages of just solid purple. Everything's tinted purple, and it's the idea that it's dusk, and he's just finding this boat at the sort of twilight of the night. It's just good stuff.
It's really nice, isn't it? And it's the way the purples play off the oranges of the explosions, and it makes these explosions really stand out in the night.
Yes, yeah.
And it makes them these big moments.
Yeah. So, colour plays a big role in this, and I guess that makes sense because obviously it's called Green Arrow. You'd expect green plays a big role, but it's a lot of the other colours as well. It's how it handles them together, and it brings the purples in at various points. And I think it's interesting that so obviously the woman names are Baby Queen, or at least in her language, it translates as Queen, as after him. But we get this final page where he's he's got the suit on and he's above the city, and he actually starts off clean shaven, but he has the beard, the goatee by the end because he's been on the island. That's kind of where it grew, which is pretty cool. But we end in this page of him on top of a building, and it's very Batman-y, kind of here's the city in the background, and he's back home to. He's going to do, but he's found his calling. He's found out because it talks about how all this thrill seeking. It was all about something was missing from his life and he didn't really know what.
Yeah. And
it never really filled it. It never worked. But actually helping people and doing, being the hero on the island is kind of the first time he's felt like who he's meant to be. He's found his purpose. So obviously it sets up that's why he's going to do what he does when he gets back. But I do think it's interesting we only get 1 page of that. It doesn't I almost when I started reading it, I almost thought the last issue would maybe get a few pages of a sequence of him doing some Green Arrow stuff in the city or something like that. But
but ultimately there's no need, is there? Because it's he's here. You get what he's going to do. You've read a comic before.
Yeah, it does make me kind of wish that there was a year 2 where Andy Diggle came back and did a sequel.
See how he handles being in the city, doing this as a hero rather than just circumstance on the island.
Because Batman Year 1, to compare it to the reason why we have the Year 1 title, a lot of that is him after he's made his choice, like, how does he start to do his mission in the city, right?
Yeah.
And I almost kind of, and admittedly, maybe it'd be too similar, but I do kind of wish, like, I want to see what he does next. I want to see
how does Oliver Queen handle this? Because that's the thing, we know Batman. He doesn't really use the Bruce Wayne money for his fight, really. You know, he'll make the gadgets and stuff. He'll do things with it, but not in the same way that Oliver Queen does.
Yeah, because he even offers like, oh, if you come back to the city, like, oh, money will never be a problem. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life, like,
right.
Spare no expense, kind of thing. Yeah. So he's willing to use his money in that way. Yeah,
a sequel would be really interesting, I think, just to see what does he do different. Like, what does this? This is obviously, this event has changed him. We get to know who he is by the end of this, but how does he function back in civilization to use these skills now?
Yeah. Like all his like hoity-toity friends, like how does that work out? His parents are both dead in this continuity,
yes.
Which is interesting, and depending on what you're reading or what you're watching is different. Because obviously in the show, his dad is here and he dies during this, and then his mother's still around. And it's, I don't want to keep compared to the show. It's hard not to. And like,
well, the show took such inspiration from this, that you can't everything they does on the island, especially in the first season, I think, is very much based on the idea of this book. I mean, they named one of their main characters after the writer, so it's clearly a big inspiration.
Yeah, actually, I want to point out as well, the first time we actually get the full pages of green, it's actually in issue 3, right? Because issue 3 is when he finds like the fields, and he finds Hackett, and Hackett is aware of him. It's actually when Hackett comes hunting him, and then it's their fight. It's
the jungle.
It's that entire fight in the jungle. Now, obviously, you're saying, oh, it's in the jungle, so of course it's mostly green. But no, some of the backgrounds are just plain green.
It's just got a big green tint to it, hasn't it?
And I think what's interesting to me about that is that's it saying that's the fight where he finally becomes Green Arrow in terms of a fighter. Like that's like sure he's shot down the plane before then, but like this fight where he's like fighting the bad guy, like he's fighting his arch nemesis at this point in the jungle, is where he earns the green, and that's why everything's green, because we're inside what is now the his mindset. Like this is where he is now. He's actually become Green Arrow in this moment.
It's like the idea of the green is like a focus thing.
Yeah. So no, I think that's pretty cool. Again, that's just going back to how well the book uses color. Which it does. So.
I will say probably my biggest problem in the sense of the plot is you mentioned your moment of China White being there, feeling coincidental. For me, that's kind of him being a natural archer, and was when he was younger, and then obviously he says he just squandered it and never did anything with it. But I didn't need him to be a particularly good archer. I'd have liked to have seen him, try and develop a little bit on the island, because immediately he's just hunting fish and birds and stuff. He's fine.
Yeah, maybe it'd have been worth spending like some of that issue like showing him like trying to like retrain himself and get better at it. I think
just the idea that even if he was good at some point, like he's not good enough to survive immediately. He's got to put some work in.
I guess. I mean, for me, it's okay in this sense because they established that he was good at it when he was younger, so it doesn't feel like such a cheap thing.
Right, but I think for me, it's one of these moments where it feels like that's something that he's just been given. It's something that he just was. He was just naturally gifted. He didn't earn that. Whereas if he had to earn just to be able to use the bow here and earn the ability, whereas he has to earn the right and the choice to be a hero, but his ability seems kind of there already.
I think the idea is though is that he maybe they could got this across better, admittedly, but I think the idea is that it was there, but he never really used it, and this is the first time that he's really using it. And I think it's maybe just out of time. Like maybe that's like, oh yeah, if we had 7 issues, maybe they devote an entire issue to him actually retraining himself with that goddamn bow. Like make it difficult. But instead, it's like no, we've got other things to do, so we've just set up that he can already do it, and we can move from there.
No, I get it. I think it's probably my biggest complaint in terms of the plot.
Well, fair enough. But no, I was getting some Lost vibes actually at one point. Like them like racing to like call out, and when they get into the base in the last issue, and they go to the radio and like send out a mayday and all that. I was getting some Lost vibes of like, oh, we're on this island in the middle of nowhere. We need to try and like contact somebody to come get us. I was getting some Lost
Makes sense.
flashbacks. Flashbacks. That's even Lost themed because Lost was all about flashbacks. But no, so it's good.
It really is. It's absolutely worth reading, and I think it is the definitive origin for Green Arrow, in my opinion.
Have you read a lot of them?
Well, no, but like, when we get to the New 52, and like things have changed there, and obviously that technically is carried through into Rebirth, and yeah, it's still
Sure.
Ireland and stuff happened, but
I'm not going to. I don't know if there was an origin in the Mike Grell stuff. If there was, I'm going to withhold my definitive origin until I've read that stuff, because that's the big Green Arrow stuff from before this, is Mike Grell's run.
okay.
So I'm curious to see if that's got an origin in it.
I would say DC probably considers this as it, with it being the year one title. Those typically
probably
tend to be, that's the origin. That's it. That's the story.
Aye, but this definitive and canon are two different things.
No, that's true.
Because arguably the Superman origin that's in continuity is more or less probably Secret Origin, but
I wouldn't say that's the definitive one. No.
Exactly. So still very good, admittedly. Superman for some reason has a lot of good origin stories. He's got like 4 of them. I don't know why, but they keep giving him origins and they keep being good. It's like, stop it, right? We've got enough.
Just pick one and go with it.
Do some year 2 Superman stories, but no, Green Arrow year 1's very good. I'd rate it highly. I guess is what I'm saying. It's just beautiful. I think the art maybe like the writing's good. I think the art is the standout, and then the writing's solid to back it up and gives it.
That's fair. I think the art, the writing does everything that it needs to do for an origin story.
Yeah.
It gives you, he's unlikable at the start, so he grows to by the end where he's a hero. He has the moment of choosing to be a hero. Those are the key points in a superhero origin story.
In fact, comparing it to shows, to compare it to Iron Fist for a moment, which is also sort of rich boy who becomes a hero in theory. Like here, you actually feel there's a change, and you feel like he's not just this naive idiot at the end again.
You get at the end where he's like, "No, I was doing something wrong. This is maybe who I was meant to be."
Not even just that, just the fact that he makes the choice and it is tough. Whereas with Iron Fist in the show, you never feel like he actually went through anything. I mean, he says he did, but you never feel it.
That's true. Whereas here, it's like you see the survival for a start. Before you even get to any of the actual China White opium field stuff, you see just the survival is tough. He's kind of dying.
But again,
he's going through sunstroke and
he makes the choice. He makes the choice to be a hero. Whereas in the Iron Fist show, it's just like he just says, "Oh yes, I'm the sworn enemy of the Hand." Sure.
Yeah.
So
basically, we will take any excuse to shit on Iron Fist.
We will. Iron Fist was a terrible show, and he was still terrible as a character in Defenders, and he's awful. And oh my god, I can't believe we have to do a second season of that at some point.
Why'd you have to remind me?
But yeah, no. So yeah, Green Arrow year 1, good stuff. So I guess that wraps that discussion up. So by all means, that's the books for the week. So before we do have some questions, which we'll tackle. I think we should have some fun doing that because it's not something we usually do. And given it's the 5th week, it's nice to do something a little bit different. But obviously we can't do a top 5. But I think panels.
I mean, I don't know. Are we counting Green Arrow year 1 in this?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Not really. I mean, you can tell me your best panel of that if you want, but like, it's not the panel of the week because it's not a new book that came out this week.
All right, fine. I'll go and flick through my actual books and decide on a panel.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain I'm picking something from Supergirl. I don't actually know what yet, though, if I'm honest.
You can tell we're prepared this week.
Well, because it's such a weird week.
I'll be honest. I wasn't expecting you to throw this on me this week. Exactly.
So I like to keep you on your toes. As for Supergirl, though, there's a lot of good ones actually. I think the whole book is generally pretty good. There's a lot of good emotion in a lot of the scenes. I might have to just go with that opening splash page of Grundy holding up a road at Supergirl as she tries to like fly through it.
Oh, that is really cool.
It's just such a cool action.
It does sound cool.
I can't not love it. So
yeah.
There you go. That was my panel.
I think I'm gonna go with from Darkseid, that panel, where he freaks out and shoots his beams to destroy the box,
No,
and he's just screaming now. You can just see the panic on his
good.
face. Yeah,
That is good. I might actually rank that story above Supergirl, actually, if I really think about it.
for me, yeah, it's definitely the strongest thing I read this week.
I'd say that Darkseid story, the main story from that book, Supergirl Annual, Wonder Woman, but then that's it, because that's and then I guess the backup from Darkseid last. But I mean,
Yeah, doesn't really count, does it?
so yeah, if you want them ranked, that's the ranking, I guess. And I suppose Darkseid wins by cover actually as well. If we're again picking a cover.
For cover, I'd have to go with All Star Batman.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I didn't read that, but yeah.
But that neon-soaked fight at night is.
I can give you it's a great cover, but it's just.
No, yeah. It's the rest of the issue is irrelevant when it comes to cover, but that cover is just gorgeous.
Cool. What I will do is I'll tell you what's coming next week, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Yeah, we have actual books next week.
Yeah, I'll wrap up the business, the housekeeping first, as it were. Okay, so coming next week, so week 1, so we have Batman number 30, Nightwing number 28, Deathstroke number 23, Green Arrow number 30, Green Lanterns number 30, and Superman number 30. We also have a Harley Quinn 25th anniversary special number 1. Are you reading that, Connor? Are you going to give that a try?
Is that part of the main book, or is it just a one-shot? I've never looked into it.
It's just a one-shot, I think. If I'm... the regular writers might be on it, though, if I remember right.
I'm trying to find it in next week's... What's it called? So just
Harley Quinn 25th anniversary special.
I don't think that's out next week anymore.
Oh, maybe it got pushed. Maybe it got even moved forward to this week. I don't know. But it was solicited.
Yeah, I think it might have done, actually.
Yeah, it got solicited for this because it basically is an annual. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Just checking. No, it doesn't look like it was this week, and it's definitely not this week because there's Harley Quinn issue 27 is next week, so it doesn't have that.
Oh yeah, there's the books we're not covering next week are Cyborg 16, Harley Quinn 27, Justice League 28, and Bane Conquest number 5. It must have been pushed to somewhere then. I did not make this book up though. There was a thing.
No, I remember hearing about it. I wasn't disputing that. I never looked into it. But
just in case DC's trying to make me...
It doesn't seem to be next week.
DC's trying to make me out to be a madman. Here's a random one-off special you made up.
There's a... You know how they're doing the Hanna-Barbera stuff, that with the twists?
Yeah.
There's a new Dastardly and Muttley miniseries coming.
Oh boy.
But it's different.
What's different about it?
Dastardly is they're pilots. They're fighter pilots.
Yes.
And they're like seem to be maybe spies. Not entirely sure. I'm just reading it now. Like they're going on this mission as fighter pilots, and there's radioactive elements and stuff, and they've got to save the day. But
that's my Muttley impression.
But Muttley still seems to be a dog.
Also, that's the other Muttley impression.
Oh, that's better.
Oh, better. Okay.
Oh, it's better.
I like Dastardly Muttley.
Yeah.
Wacky
I
Races,
didn't know this was coming out.
Flying Pigeon, or Catch the Pigeon rather. That was the name of it.
Yeah, I didn't really follow much of those things. They were a bit too different for me. Like the Hanna-Barbera things with a twist. They're a bit too different from what the property was.
I thought you meant the cartoons when you were a kid. I'm like,
no,
what do you mean?
No.
What were you watching when you were a kid? I was watching upper class chilled programming. Thank you very much with the pinky out.
I definitely watched those.
Yeah, I was too busy watching some I don't know, what's a posh cartoon?
Is there any posh cartoons?
Probably. I was too busy watching the animated version of Dynasty. Thank you very much.
Nailed it.
Alright, so that's what's coming next week. So it's actually still a relatively quiet week next week, which is why the monthly bonus episode for patrons will probably be early in the month, because it'll be close to week 1, because that's when there's less to read from the regular books. If you've forgotten, we are doing Justice by Jim Kruger and Alex Ross, so that'll be me and Connor. That'll be exclusive for patrons in the $5 tier. That'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks, so you can look forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it because that's one I've not read before.
You've not read that? I have read it before, but it was one that I read way back in like the first year or two of me reading comics, and it's been a long time. So I'm actually really looking forward to revisiting it. So
I am intrigued because as much as I love Alex Ross's work, I'm not sure I love it as sequential art. I love every panel, but I'm not sure I love it as a story in everything.
Well, we'll find out how we feel in the bonus episode, just to tease you. All right, so we got some questions then to wrap up. We got some just to make this feel like a proper length episode as best we can. We have some questions. So I've got Twitter handles down here to credit people with these questions. There's one that's a little bit meatier that I think I'll save for last, but the rest of them I'll just do in the order I've got them written down here. So first up from IrishB number 4, or at IrishB number 4, one of our regulars. How do we feel about Joss Whedon getting an official writing credit on Justice League? That was announced this week. That was a bit of news that popped up this week. It doesn't change how I feel all that much. It's kind of like, I mean, sure, it's a little bit more of a sign of hope that he's rewritten so much of it that it's less of the film that it was before. But even with someone good, it could still end up being a mess because it's been like so many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, I think I'm concerned because as good as Whedon is, and don't get me wrong, he is amazing, but they can't reshoot everything. They're still working with a structure of what was already there. The bones of it had to be kept.
The action scenes certainly, but it's starting to sound more and more like he redid all of the non-action scenes, which
will give it this strange feeling, because obviously those action scenes from Snyder's stuff are bad for the most part. I think in terms of just choreography is fine, but it's typically the way it looks. It's just the CG murkiness. There's no definition to anything that's going on.
Yeah, I don't like it either. It gives me a little bit more hope. I wouldn't say it really affects my opinion that much, but it does give me a little touch of like.
I still wouldn't say I'm looking forward to the movie. I'm not because I want to watch it. I'm looking forward to seeing if it's a mess or not, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I've still got morbid curiosity. Certainly, that's definitely my riding feeling.
I will say I keep forgetting that's out this year.
As do I.
That's out in 4 months, something like that.
3 months, so in November.
We're in September now. I forgot.
In fact, that's 2 months now. Actually, what am I saying? 2 months.
Yeah, it's 2.5, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shit. But I forget. There is very little marketing so far, really.
No. Maybe they're waiting until they've
Maybe they haven't got enough of it finished.
Yeah, they're waiting until they know they've done enough of it to market it. Oh man, imagine they delay it. Imagine they actually have to put out an announcement. It's delayed till March because too many reshoots.
This is it. I was convinced that they were going to with when we heard about how extensive this was.
But we're so close now.
But we're so close now. Surely they can't.
Yeah. So I'm still expecting it in November. It'll just be a case of. I imagine
whether it's finished or not.
I imagine they've finished the reshoots by now.
Yeah, but it's just how it all comes together in the edit and all the other stuff that's got to be put into it.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. If nothing else, it'll be a curious monstrosity if it's bad.
It's going to be fascinating to break down and talk about, though.
Maybe it'll feel salvaged. Maybe it'll feel like, it's still weird around the edges because it's still got Snyder elements and the action scenes are still like his stuff. But it could end up being, other than that, though, pretty good. I mean, that could be our opinion. Or
alternatively, it could be, this is a mess with things that I like.
Yeah, it could. I mean, there's so many things this could end up feeling like.
I can't remember the last time I went into a movie like this where I literally have no idea what to expect. I have no idea how I'm going to feel at the end of this.
Yeah, so there you go. I guess that answers that question. Next up, this is from @Tim3Robin. Do you feel the big creators on all the minis and events that are coming up will hurt the main books, either in quality or sales?
I think sales is a possibility for some of the smaller books. But, like the ones that maybe people would check out if there was, less things. But the more books you have, the more you have to choose.
Yeah, if you're buying it, because the minis are typically a little bit more expensive as well in the events, so if you're
Yeah.
buying those, you may have to cut some things. So I can see the sales hurting some of the smaller books. I absolutely see that happening, which is a shame. At the same time, though, admittedly, at least a lot of those smaller books have already like cut down a lot in terms of sales. So maybe the people who have already the people who have stuck with it to this point are likely the people who are going to want to stick with it anyway.
Right, and also the fact that they're quite well established at this point in their series. None of them are just starting up and competing to gain an audience.
Which is a good point, actually. I think that was maybe a very intentional thing. Is that other than Justice League v Suicide Squad, which was a very short event, like they've really given all the regular books a chance to really find their feet.
Yeah, there was nothing like these minis and things that are coming out now, and the prestige stuff. There's nothing there that'll drag you away from a book if you're already reading it, because you're 12 issues in, whatever.
And even those didn't start until later last year, and there was only a couple. And now it feels like we're gearing up for a lot more of them, which is great because I'm actually looking forward to a lot of them. But it definitely didn't feel like it really felt like, oh no, we're letting the focus be on the main books for a while, and now we're getting some more variety and some weird things we can try out. As for affecting quality, I don't think so at all.
I think it probably won't affect the quality, but it might affect your perception, because I think a lot of the prestige books feel special, and typically you might enjoy them more because of by their nature. And like I said, they attract some really, really big name creators and really strong focused stories. So sometimes I do feel that they're better than a lot of the mainline books, which are they're coming out every month consistently, twice a month with the story going on and on. But so it's a different style of storytelling.
To a point, I don't think that affects the quality though.
No. It doesn't affect the quality, but it might affect your perception, where you're getting so many of these that you're enjoying them, that you're going, am I enjoying these more than some of the regular books?
Only if you're stupid enough to not be aware of your own opinions.
Okay.
Well, because I'm enjoying these two prestige books or this event so much. Suddenly the rest of my books feel so boring, and they're not like. I feel like no. If you're used to reading comics and you're reading these every month, you know what you're expecting. We know what we're expecting out of detective comics every month. We know what we're expecting out of action comics every month, and so on. I don't think I go and read Doomsday Clock and I'm like, oh man, this is the most amazing thing ever, and I go back to detective and go, this is dead boring. And I was like, no, because I'm here for my Bat Family book.
Oh, of course, it's just the more of these that we have at a time. I think we've got 3 or 4 of them coming up.
Yeah.
These, but then the more of them you have, is there a danger? I wonder, is there a danger of when you get so many that you go, I'd rather just be reading these than the other. These feel special, and it's making my main books feel.
It's totally per person basis, because honestly, I think I'm actually kind of not always, but there's a point in me where it's like, no, I appreciate the consistency of the things that are always there. Sometimes I actually kind of get a little bit fatigued with all these extra things. I ended up kind of enjoying Nightwing: The New Order, but before I read it, I'm like, oh, that's that weird extra book I've got this week that's not part of my main set. It feels like an extra thing I have to do.
This goes back to what we were just saying. You're established in the books that you read. You read them probably because you enjoy them. One would hope. And
or you're being forced to by Patreon because you read Red Hood every month.
Yep, that happens. But the idea that you're already established in these. You've been reading these books for probably a year with most of them now at this point, and you're like, so you're probably accustomed to them, to what they are, unless they do dip for whatever reason. Some do, like Superman just did, for example.
Yeah, but even most big books have their dips and their highs and lows. It's something that happens, and you don't. One low doesn't mean okay, I'm dropping this forever now.
That's true. That's true. That does remind me a little bit of news on Superman, though. Actually, that I think we forgot to mention about we're just getting a different creative team for a couple of issues.
Oh yeah, apparently the next arc with Tomasi and Gleason was meant to start at 30, 31, whatever the number is, and instead there's going to be a 2-issue fill-in from someone else before. I'm
assuming that it's just the arc's just delayed.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's
what it is. It'll be the same issues. Yeah. It'll just be this extra fill-in for whatever. Give them a break, catch up.
I mean, it's funny that it's happening right after a 2-issue break, or actually 3-issue break, because we're not done with that arc yet. But we've had this little break already. I wonder, are they up to something else in another book that we don't know about yet? That's maybe delaying their work, because I mean, because Tomasi's still doing Super Son, so it's not like all of the work's kind of stopped. But so I'm curious. Like, I'm wondering if are they working on a tie-in to an event or something that we don't know about yet.
And it makes me go back to that last arc with them. Where it felt like we had some problems. It felt like a textbook. It felt padded.
That 2-issue field trip issue.
It does make me wonder, were they kind of rushing that out? Because that was almost just filling the word count quota. Where it's like, hey, this'll do. That's 4 pages covered of just textbook. Yeah. Just copy and paste essentially.
Well, I'm only accused them of that. I was a bit.
Well, no, but when he was reading like the memorials and things like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm sure they still paraphrased it into their own. Like that just feels a bit of that is an accusation there. That's not only an accusation of being lazy, that's an accusation of plagiarizing.
I'm just saying, I'm assuming that they were mostly real memorials and they copied them word for word out of respect.
Maybe, I don't know. But no, so yeah, that's the thing that's happening. But no, I don't think it'll hurt the quality, unless they actively start taking people off books. Like, if they take... Oh, Tinny, you're not doing detective anymore because you're doing an event. Like, if they start doing that, then sure, yeah, it'll start to have an effect.
Right, so Humphreys is coming off Green Lanterns, and we know he said, it's because he's gets to work on something special that he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
If it turns out that it's a prestige book or something that he is working on, or it's a mini, then I guess that could be a fair question, because then they are coming off the main books to do these special things.
Not for one or two instances. Because one or two instances I feel like is normal shuffling around anyway, especially since in this case Seeley's replacing them. It's like, okay, well, we replace one good writer with another good writer.
Right. If that's the reason, is that the start of a...
But if that happens multiple times and then the replacements on the main books are like, oh, it's someone who's clearly like, if they take, let's say they take Tynion off Detective, and then Scot Lodbell's now writing Detective Comics, it's like. Like, that's when they start to have a problem. But honestly, up until now, there's absolutely zero evidence that people are going to be like yanked off main books and then replaced with lower tier talent, I guess.
I do think it might affect some of these smaller books, though, like the Hellblazer, where Seeley was going on to that, presumably was going to do for a while, presumably had more than one arc planned, because it wasn't announced as a one arc thing like the Wonder Woman stories were announced as these are doing one arc, that's it. And Seeley went on to Hellblazer, and then it was like, oh, actually, he's going to Green Lanterns instead. So he's kind of dropped Hellblazer, and someone else is going to have to pick that up now.
Yeah, but that's before his first issue of that even came out, so it wasn't even like a set in stone thing. Like, I think there's a big difference between that and someone who's been on a book for like 20, 30 issues, and then you're being yanked because of X reason. So, I don't know. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about any of this right now.
Nah, that wouldn't be either, really.
Yeah, I don't think there's any indication that anything's suffering because of it. Because especially as like Jeff Johns is doing Doomsday Clock, he wasn't on anything anyway. Like, it's special because he's not been doing anything actually. That's part of why that's so special.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other stuff like Snyder wasn't really on anything outside of All Star Batman, right?
Yeah, he wasn't doing anything on that.
Yeah,
no.
and in fact, he's actually got more. He's doing that. He's doing the new Dark Matter book. What was it? Challenges of the Unknown. He's doing.
Yes.
So he's got a new book, but it's not taking away from the other stuff. So at least for now, I don't think there's any reason to. That's not to say that it couldn't become an issue down the line, but and even then, like if someone does get taken off a book, is that the natural end of their run anyway? Like, because the runs can't last forever. So
right, and it's just a case by case basis at that point, isn't it?
It's a case by case basis. I think the only way that I feel like this is a big problem is if suddenly this all happens at once and then they all seem to be on these new minis
and even then it's this weird situation where you don't necessarily feel the effects because you're still getting good books. It may not be the mainline, Rebirth titles, but you're still getting a lot of books from DC. Say that they come off Detective, but they do a mini. You're still getting that mini. You're still getting a good book from the same writer. And
again, this is just in terms of the sales are another thing because maybe if to fit all these new books, you're cutting some of the lower tier books. But I think in terms of quality, I have zero reason to think there actually would be an impact.
I agree.
And even then, even if it happens once, I don't think that's like a systematic problem where it's all happening to all Rebirths. It's just, okay, so it's happened to one unfortunate book necessarily, then whatever.
Yeah.
Big deal. Like, it's going to happen from time to time. They can't keep the same creators on the same books forever. There's some that I would like them
the
to be a
fact
long
that they've
time.
had as many as if they had, like they've had so many that stayed on for so long at this point.
Yeah, because
consistently.
Wonder Woman, Superwoman, and Hellblazer are like the only ones that have changed, right?
Yeah, with Green Lanterns coming up.
And Green Lanterns will be the new one, yeah. But then again, replacement Tim Seeley. Oh my god, what are we going to do? Tim Seeley on the book.
Yeah, and by all accounts, Superwoman was better.
I like the new writer better. Yeah.
And Wonder Woman's a strange situation where they left because they had other stuff to do.
Yeah, that was the creative team's choice. What I think is interesting about that though, with Wonder Woman, is that obviously we had the 5-issue thing for one team, and then we're getting another sort of arc or two from this new team. What I think is interesting about that, to me, that feels like they want another big team on Wonder Woman, but they've not quite found them yet. So they're doing these small arc runs with these different teams as just it is kind of like not filler, but like just a temporary thing because they're holding out for their next big name they want to put on it. They want someone big.
I feel like they're almost treating it as trials for some of these teams, like the maybe not so much the when we got Robinson on there, he's well established, whatever. But this writer at the minute who has come from a digital first title, it's like let's see what she can handle in the big leagues. Let's see what she can do. See where the sales.
I think so. I wouldn't be surprised if they announce like she ends up being full time in Wonder Woman after this next little bit.
Or even if not Wonder Woman, I can see her getting a book full time. Because she's proved herself. It's like, okay, let's see how the sales do, because obviously that's what matters to them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I can see her getting a full time book if it's not Wonder Woman, something else after this.
Yeah.
And again, same with, because she did an issue of Justice League recently as well. She did like one fill-in issue of that. So clearly they're testing the waters with some of these things. But I am convinced that whoever's going to be the next like proper like ongoing run in Wonder Woman will be another big name. I think they're just either try to like find who they want for it, or get someone else to like free up their schedule so they're open for it.
Could that be Humphries?
I wouldn't guess right now. I wouldn't think so right now, but it's not impossible.
It's a possibility. Yeah.
It's not impossible. All right, next question comes from @Carson_Nicky. Dark Knight Returns is actually very overrated. Discuss. Salty comment, that one. Nice salty question.
I think it's an amazing book and a fantastic read, but it is dated. Okay. It's very dated and it's of its time, and I think you have to, like when you watch an older movie that you can go, okay, this is different. It's the same way like we're watching through Star Trek right now on they already cancelled, and we enjoy a lot of them a lot, but at the same time there's always a bit of going, we have to accommodate certain things because it's from its time. And I feel like Dark Knight Returns is kind of like that for me, where there are things in it that are like, no, this is because of how it was at the time, even though it's not something I necessarily think is good now.
Interesting. It's funny because I love the first issue of Dark Knight Returns because it's 4 issues.
Yeah,
I love the first issue a lot. I love the actual return part of the Dark Knight Returns, and then the rest of it, I think it's fine. Like I don't love Dark Knight Returns. I think Batman Year One is better. I think Frank Miller's Daredevil work is mostly better than the rest of Dark Knight Returns.
I haven't read his Daredevil work, but I agree on Year One.
Yeah, like that's just kind of how I feel about it. I think the actual return issue, that first issue, is excellent, and then the rest of it, I think it's okay. Like I think it does some okay stuff. I do think it mistreats Superman. I think any Superman fan typically has a problem with how he's handled in that story. I'm not in love with the art, if I remember right. Like I don't remember loving
I really like the art, but again, I think that's one of those things where that's just taste, I think.
But then I think the actual question here, overrated, like I think that's less about how much we like it, and it's more about the perception of the Dark Knight Returns, because it is often held up as this, Batman v Superman's announced, they announce it with a quote from that book, and everyone keeps talking about how, oh yeah, the big part of the source material where we're looking at Dark Knight Returns, that's the...
I think it's overrated in general media, like, general public, people who maybe don't read comics that much.
They like to bring it up, they like to talk about how it was the start of the gritty Batman and all the rest of it, and to an extent it was, but I do think, yeah, you're right. It's the media, and when they're talking about, it's based on comic books. Dark Knight Returns is the big landmark book that everyone bases things on, and they probably shouldn't.
Maybe they shouldn't. You're right, and I'm not defending that, but it is undeniable that it shaped comics for decades
Oh
to
no,
come.
but I think the thing is here is that it's essentially an Elseworld, right?
Yeah.
It's not an in continuity Batman story. Year one, I think, actually has more of the effect in terms of the in continuity Batman going forward. Dark Knight Returns is very much its kind of own thing, and it's good own thing. And like I say, I love the first issue, and I like a decent amount of what comes after it, but not as much as that first issue. And
And I will say though, when you're talking about the actual return, that first issue is amazing. I think that's a lot of what the media, when they talk about it as a book, that's kind of what they often refer to as, when they talk about it's a Dark Knight Returns style story, they're talking about, the coming out of retirement, the old grizzled.
Yeah, they're not talking about the Nazi mutants and the
Right, they're not really talking about that part of the book, are they? They're talking about the ideas of that first issue, the themes of coming out of retirement, coming back, and being different, and how time's affected
That
you.
is probably true. I will say, in terms of it, is it overrated? I do cringe when I hear on the run up to Batman v Superman when they kept using we're taking inspiration from Dark Knight. I usually cringed when I heard it. It didn't fill me with hope because I feel like it's one of those stories that not misinterpreted, but definitely is taking at face value by people who maybe don't read a lot of other comics and just sort of we're doing Dark Knight Returns because that's the one that everyone loves, and
Right, and
that's not really the Batman I want in general.
no, and I wouldn't blame Frank Miller for that either. I think he was very aware of when he was writing it that this was a different Batman. This wasn't the Batman that was in continuity.
He knew what he was doing at the time. Now, I'm not going to say that he continued to always know what he was doing.
Yeah, I'm not defending some of his more recent works, but then when he wrote that, I think he was aware that this was not the same Batman that he just wrote in year one. This wasn't supposed to be the end game for that. This is just a possibility.
No, because part of it is a bit of a deconstruction. It's not quite Watchmen levels, but there's definitely a deconstructive
it's getting at it,
element in there. It's analysing Batman and analysing the traditional Batman story beats. It's this part of that's in the book. But is it overrated? Yes. I probably would say yes, it is overrated. And at the very least, it's over.
I will say it's overrated by people who don't read comics, by people who do read comics, and I've actually read the book and I've read other things as well. A bit more aware. I don't think it's overrated by them. It's placed quite fairly by those people, and from my experience.
By the non-comic readers, it's probably overcredited for things.
Yeah.
It's seen on the pedestal as this big story that people should aspire to. And
that's because they're just told that it is. Because they have no context for it.
And I feel like, no, it shouldn't be. There's a lot of other Batman stories I'd rather see movies try and emulate and try and do. I'd rather see a movie try and do Long Halloween long before I'd rather see them do Dark Knight Returns. Although, interesting tidbit, the animated movie, Dark Knight Returns, the 2-part animated movie they did, I actually think is the best animated movie they've done in that line. It's not the best animated Batman movie in general because Mask of the Phantasm exists, but in terms of that line of direct-to-video movies from 2007 onwards,
I agree with that, and I think that actually does a great job of updating some of the things that are quite stilted in the writing that are from the time. The newscasting.
It cuts down the newscasting a lot, which is
and there is also because on TV you can show that in the background while having other stuff happen on a video.
I will say if I'm going to criticise that book, there is far too much of the news report casting stuff.
Right, and again, that's where it feels very of its time, where it's this fear and paying attention to the news all the time and seeing what's going to happen.
But there is some very good stuff in that book, though, as well. So it's definitely worth reading. It definitely deserves a place in history, and it deserves a lot of the talk that it gets. But does it get too much? Does it get overcredited? And do people who don't read comics always bring it up as the thing we should talk about, when really there's a lot of other worthwhile Batman stories? It's
one of many things that should be discussed, and like I say, it deserves to have discussion about it. I'm sure we'll cover it at some point, but it's not the be all and end all.
So hope that answers the question. Well, I mean, you just asked us to discuss it, so I suppose we achieved that. So the last question that I'm going to bring forth is from @TalkingSuperman, and this one's a bit more general. Can you guys remember specific moments that you became attached to a character? I suppose probably the most difficult question, but I think it may also give us the most interesting conversation.
See, This is the one where I wish you'd given me some warning, where I could have thought about this and
I want to see
prepared.
you struggle. I want to see you struggle and claw at your memories. Because I am going to struggle with this as well. It's actually quite a hard question to think about. Okay, when did I actually grow attached to certain characters? I can tell you when I grew reattached to Batman. I can start with that.
Okay.
Because I had basically kind of fallen away from like superheroes. I didn't read comics when I was a kid. And I watched the Superman movies and the Batman movies and the Batman animated series specifically a lot when I was a kid. And it was actually Batman Begins that I remember going to see, and not really feeling overly strongly about it. I didn't even know who Christopher Nolan was before I went to see that. I was, I think, 16 at the time. And that was the movie that actually got me reading comic books. And I remember very vividly watching that movie, and I got to the moment where Gordon arrives at the docks and Falcone's like chained up on the big signal, and he looks up into the sky and you see just kind of the rough shape of a bat as the music kind of swells up. And I remember just kind of in that moment, like, I mean, obviously the movie was good continuously up until that point, but I remember just at that moment kind of like getting Batman in a way that I'd never gotten as a kid. Like the idea of like creating the myth and the symbol and how useful that is in terms of like actually spreading the message of what he's about and why he uses that as part of his arsenal. Like, I remember just understanding that maybe for the first time, probably just because I hadn't really been looking at anything. I probably hadn't looked at a Batman related thing in like over 5 years. At which point would have been like, 10 or 11 years old. So it was a big difference in my life from 10, 11 to 16. And I remember actually going out after seeing that movie and buying these Superman movies in DVD because I wanted to rewatch them because I had this reignited passion for superheroes, and DC were who I cared about, so that was like where I went. But I remember that made me buy Batman Year One, and then from there more books. So that's when I reignited my love of Batman. That's when I grew attached to that idea of theatricality, and a lot of what that movie talks about the symbol and all that stuff, and how ideas as a man you can be ignored, but as a symbol you could be immortal, and that's why he specifically sets out to become maybe superhero is not the right word, but like a character,
icon.
Yeah, an icon. It's like because other characters like to do it because they want to disguise themselves or they for other reasons, but Batman, I wanted to create the Batman as a character because it was going to scare the shit out of villains and it was going to mean something, and I liked that a lot. So,
oh, that's fair. See, I'm different. Like I feel like a lot of people now they come into comics through a movie. Whether it is Nolan's Batman
or a TV show.
Quite common. That's it for me. I think it's a different feeling with a TV show, because for me it was a TV show, and it was Smallville actually.
Oh,
I know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's the best show ever. I'm not, but it
better not be saying it's the best show ever.
I'm not. But it's different in a TV show, because I don't think you have, like a movie. You sit there for 2 hours and you go, I want more of that. And you go, and that's when you go out and you seeked out more. With
Smallville, I watch it for an hour and go, I don't want more of that.
Well, see, this is it. Like, you watch the whole thing, and over years, it's like, there's these things that I want to know more about. Like, you'll get an episode with the JSA, and it's like, oh, I liked that character. Even if it's just something as simple as, I like the design. Where can I see more? What, because that's why superhero designs are so iconic. In part, is because you remember it, and that kind of is an immediate intrigue. Okay. And you look at it, and Smallville, for all its faults with the other things that it does, someone like I think Lex was probably the greatest character on it, and I think it was a very good portrayal of Lex, and both through the actual Lex and through Lionel, who is also a Lex character.
I won't fault you too much there. I will say that that went down the toilet a little bit later on with how absurd it got, but yeah. Early on, sure. But
early on, with the two of them, they were both various versions of Lex at different stages of their life.
Yeah.
And it was like, where can I get more of that type of story? Like, where can I get more of that Lex character?
So as this is about Lex, we're talking about how you get connected to Lex.
I suppose we are.
Well, that's the question.
I suppose, yeah.
When did you get attached to a character? Like, that's the question.
Yes, I suppose we are, and that made me look into some Superman comics. And one of the first ones I read was actually, Azzarello's Luthor. And it was because of Smallville where I saw this character. He was, because you had both the businessman and the scientist side presented in that show, and the origin, the ruthlessness. It's like, like that's a a really interesting character that I wanted to see more of, and I wanted to get a story from that. And obviously, it got to a point where Smallville wasn't going to give me that. So it's like, right, where can I get more? Comics would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, okay. That kind of turned into like, how did we get into comic books?
But again, it's this idea that there wasn't a specific moment that I got.
Yeah.
I realized I was attached to Lex. It was like it got to a point where I was like, I want to see more of that character. It's kind of gotten away from that. But I want to see more of that.
It makes sense to a point that some of our first attachments were outside of comics, because that's how we kind of discovered the characters, and that's where we went. So I'm going to make this a little bit tougher. Think of a character who we didn't know from the shows or movies first, and then it was when reading the comics where we got to a specific moment where we connected to someone.
I can tell you, Wonder Woman. I don't have to think hard on the specific moment, but attachment to Wonder Woman has definitely come through Rucka's run. Because before it's like, Wonder Woman's there, she's fine, whatever. But I never had any attachment to the character.
It's kind of like how she's okay. I accept that she's the third of the Trinity. She's the other, on the Mount Rushmore of DC. She's the next face on there. But I'm not necessarily.
It was at a point where I probably wouldn't read a Wonder Woman book just because it was Wonder Woman. Whereas, and we went into Rebirth going, we weren't there because it's a Wonder Woman book. We're excited. We were there. It's a Rucka book. We want to read this. Whereas now I probably go, do you know what? Whoever they throw on this creative team next, I'm going to give it a try, because thanks to that run through Rucka, I'm attached to the character. I want to see what comes next for Diana.
Yeah, you understand the character now. You understand who she is and why you should care about her. Yeah, no, I get your feelings.
But obviously that's that story. I think it definitely came through year one, probably, because that the art in that story really connected me there.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of one that specifically, I got from the comic books. Maybe going to someone like Stephanie Brown's a good idea, like that. Because I remember just trying her Batgirl run because it was Batgirl, right? That was just the thing. There's a Batgirl book. I want to read Batgirl, because I like Barbara Gordon and stuff. And that book starts with her like you think it's. I mean, I didn't know this at the time, but you think it's Cass, because it's Cassie's outfit, and then she like rips off the mask and it's like, I'm Stephanie Brown, and I'm like, okay, cool. Who's Stephanie Brown?
Impact was lost on you there.
Yeah, obviously when I went back and read it again, and I have a better understanding of these things. And she gets her own suit, obviously, like 5 or 6 issues in or whatever it is. And Oracle's training her, and she's like looking out for her. But I remember like this discovery of who this character was, because I mean I knew what Batgirl is as an idea, but who is this character? And I remember. Yeah. Like simple things, like the whole idea of her liking waffles, and she gets up and she has waffles in the morning with her mother, and it's these quiet moments between the heroics. I think that's why we get sometimes disappointed when we have a book like Justice League and it's just action, and there's no downbeats, there's no moments where the characters just are who they are.
And that's it. So here, that's the moment you attach to Stephanie Brown. The idea that she just goes down and has waffles. It's so normal. There's an attachment there.
Well, I think that's what I like. I mean, and to an extent, the original sort of idea of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl is she's just a teenage girl who wants to do good, so she tries to fit this around her school life. It's almost why I like the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer so much. Is it's the idea of someone in high school having to live this double life and work around the fact that they have to lie to their parents when we know they're doing it for a good reason, but their parents are just going to think they're try to be delinquents.
No, you're right, and I think it's something that maybe is missing sometimes in books these days. When I think of that run, I don't think of any specific plot points necessarily. I think of the character and her interactions with the others.
Yeah, her crushes, her being scared of Batman, her try to like teach Damien how to be a kid, and
right. Like I say, I don't think of any plot. I think of just these character moments, and I think if I think of more recent things, I think maybe there's a danger that some books now are too plot focused and they forget about let's just do some stuff with the characters. Let's just have fun for a while. There's a need to always have a big story.
Actually, that makes me think. I mentioned Damien. If I think of like when did I grow to like Damien as a character, I don't think it was in the initial Grant Morrison stuff. I think it was probably when Dick became Batman and he was the Robin to Dick's Batman. I think between Batman and Robin and maybe even the Streets of Gotham stuff that like Denny was doing.
Yeah, I think for me, I liked him as a pairing in that stuff. That was good stuff. I like the way he had a relationship with Dick, but I don't think I like Damian himself as a character and go attached to him until Tomasi and Gleason's Batman and Robin.
See, I think I did, and maybe it was that Batgirl issue actually, because maybe that was the time where it let him interact with someone completely different, who tried to do something different with him. So maybe it was that very issue that I actually grew to like Damien the way I do now, and because now I just love him. I think he's hilarious. I think he's got such a great little attitude, and not great in a good way, but just great in a entertaining way. The way he bounces off others, the way he's such a little hard ass, like. All those elements. Because when he first showed up, he was kind of this antagonist, and Batman had to try and go and stop him from killing someone with a sword. Like, at that point, he was purely just plot. But then he became a character who was worth sticking around, and that became kind of stuff like that. I'm trying to think if there's any other again, just characters in the comics specifically, where there's a moment in the comics. I think it's hard to try. It's kind of hard to try and pare it down to one moment. And I think
right, because for me, a lot of it is like I look back and realize I care about this now, whereas I didn't necessarily earlier on.
It's built over time. Yeah, I think that would be my answer as well. Is typically you look back after a little bit of time and go, oh man, I actually really care about this character now, and I didn't at the start of this. Maybe this run of comics or the start of this TV show or this.
Right, that's what I was saying with Smallville, where I was like, when it got to a point where Lex was kind of going off the rails and they were doing crazy stuff, I was like, I actually really liked what that was before. I want more of that. And it's kind of this feeling that when it was going on, I didn't necessarily know that I was super into that, but then it was like, I liked that. That was what I liked, and you kind of realize later that it's that stuff as a whole, as it grows and did these things, that you enjoyed it for that.
I think to go with the whole Stephanie story I just said about how I worked through the Batgirl books. I read a Batgirl, and then I discovered who she was, and I really grew attached to who she was. I think even just the idea of Barbara as Batgirl. I think I liked the idea of Batgirl, but I didn't really know a whole lot about her up until a point. And then I read Batgirl Year One, I read other things, and this idea. I think there's a lot of characters where I liked the idea of the character before I really knew who they were. And then I went to read about them, and then I grew to learn who various characters were, especially some of the smaller ones who are tangential to the main cast.
Yeah.
So characters like that are, we fill in these weird kind of I think I had an idea like the idea of Black Canary to Green Arrow, that was just an idea for a long time, and then I read various stories. I read some Birds of Prey, I read various other things that had Black Canary in it, and I'm like, okay, I actually understand who Dinah is now. Enough to the point where when this TV show Arrow started, I'm like, this doesn't feel like Dinah. This is not the character. And I think that's a big thing where, and I think this is one of the, just to sort of tangent this into another discussion, is I think that's one of the big things that I get really annoyed when I'm arguing with someone about, say, the portrayal of Superman in Man of Steel, or more specifically Batman v Superman. And to a lot of people, if you just slap that S on the chest and you call him Superman, he's Superman, and they don't understand that, no, the character...
It's more than that, yeah.
There's a character there that is the character, and that is Superman. It's not just enough to slap the name on him.
I think, like you're saying, you go to them in the first place, because you go, oh, that's Superman, I know what that is. I'm interested. And then you read a good Superman story, and you go, oh, I'm attached to this character now, who it is. It's that moment of realization of it's the character that you care about now, not the idea of the character.
Yeah, well, it's both. I think the idea of Superman and who he is and what he can represent and who he can be to people.
That's what brings you in.
Yeah.
And then you get attached to who the actual what Superman actually is.
Well, yeah, but I think it mixes. I think it's both. I think the whole idea of what Superman is also something that Batman v Superman gets wrong. It's everything. It's everything about him, but it feeds into his character. It's one thing to just say Batman, oh, he's just a vigilante who dresses up as a bat and beats up criminals, but it's another thing to say, why did he pick the bat? Why did he do these things? Why this particular way? Why doesn't he kill people? What are these rules? And then you have Batman v Superman who just throws that out the window. Oh, he's just killing people left and right. And it's why does that upset me as a Batman fan? Well, it upsets me because that's not who he is. You've fundamentally just not got the character right with that. And that's to say there's not elements that you can change, or there's elements that you can... in Man of Steel, I wasn't pissed that they did the whole, they've not had a natural birth in Krypton. I'm like, okay, that could be interesting. Why... let's explore that idea.
That's it. There are fundamental things to a character that are essential. With Batman, he can't kill. That's a fundamental thing. That's it.
Yeah, you can't change that. Yeah.
But if you want to change, some other stuff, I'm okay with that. There are things that you can change about characters that don't have too much impact overall, but as long as the core is intact, it was just a different version.
Yeah, yeah. I think absolutely that's the case. I'm just to swing back round to the original question. I'm just trying to think if there's any other characters that I can think of where that was the at least the run or the story that I got attached to them. I'm trying to think.
Stargirl in John's as JSA.
Can you be more specific? Is there a specific kind of?
It's when she's with Jakeem and she's talking about her family and why she's Stargirl, and the idea that she had this legacy, she wanted to be this, but her family didn't want her to, but she was like, no, I'm going to do it anyway because that's who I want to be.
Okay.
And I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, I get this character, I get who she is, I get why she's doing this.
Actually, if to go back to Batman Begins for a second, can I just say that again, much like Batman, but even to a greater extent, because up until that point he'd been so misrepresented, the idea of James Gordon and who that character is.
Oh yeah.
And having an appreciation that he's actually, because in the previous movies, like the Burton and the Schumacher movies, he literally just sort of is this fat guy who just waves Batman on and says, "Yeah, go Batman, go." Whereas he's actually a character. He has a purpose. He has his own sort of like problems and his own ideals, and there's a reason why Batman goes to him. It's actually a rich relationship between them, and it's something that a lot of adaptations I think have squandered in the past, and they shouldn't. It's a big part of Batman's overall world. And I have no idea what the show Gotham's doing now. I gave up at Balloon Man, but 4 episodes in. Like I have no idea what that's doing now. I
think the best thing about Gotham that I saw was their Bullock.
Yes, I agree with that.
The Bullock was pretty on point.
Just from the first couple of episodes, yeah, I can say that Bullock was pretty well cast.
It might not be anymore. It might have gone off the rails in the writing.
Yeah. I saw an image actually in the last couple of weeks of their apparently young Bruce Wayne's wearing a kind of proto bat suit.
Yeah.
And he looks like a gimp. What?
I didn't think it was real at first when you showed me that.
It's real. It's there. Because I think one of my worries with Gotham when they announced it was like, is this just going to be the next Smallville where every single villain under the sun is going to appear before he ever becomes Batman? And I remember watching the pilot of Gotham, and his parents have been killed like a week ago, and he's already standing on the roof going, "I have to confront my fear." I'm like, no, let him grieve first. Like, no, too quick. You're getting to these points that you shouldn't get to until much later in his life, and it's just nah.
Yeah,
bug the hell out of me. Okay, I guess that's as best as we're getting on that question. Hopefully you enjoyed some of that answer, or at least the discussion. Hopefully it was interesting. So thanks for the questions. That's something we might do in some week 5s. We were also toying with maybe doing that on the monthly bonuses, since that's just the one thing we talk about on those, that we'd maybe have a little bit of question time on there. But of course that means you also have to be one of the patrons if you want to hear the response. So so we'll give that some thought, because obviously the regular episodes are typically far too long to add in a Q&A section. As you notice, especially for weeks 2 and 3, 2.5 hours has become kind of the normal for those, and that's going to be consistent because we're going to have more issues of Metal, we're going to have issues of Doomsday Clock soon coming into things, but that
even before we get to Doomsday Clock, we got things like the Oz Effect and Tim Drake's return.
That's right, yeah. Those end up causing a lot of like long discussions. I think it's maybe the downside of this 5th week as well, is that the issues we did have didn't really give us a lot of meat to.
No, they were like,
into.
It's the next part of the story.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they were fine, but there wasn't that sort of landmark book that we headlined the show with, which we often do. But there you go. That has been episode 67 of Comics from the Multiverse. It has been a weird edition, but here we are. So by all means, let us know what you thought of this week's comics. By all means, give us your own answers to those questions as well in the comments if you want to. Whether that's on YouTube or if you're on iTunes, give us a review. If you're on any other podcast service like our app, give us a 5-star rating, whatever it is. All of it helps. Like and subscribe, all the rest of it. If you want to support us, as we mentioned, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. In the $5 tier, you get access to the monthly bonus episode, which me and Connor do. We're doing Justice this coming month. And you also get to vote on the 5th week episode, what trade or whatever we do. So that happens every couple of months as well. So you can support us over there. Otherwise, is there anything else I need to plug or promote or say things about?
Just if you want to get more involved in the discussions in general, just come and join the Multiverse Facebook group. There's always a comics thread where we discuss pretty much anything. And
if you, of course, if you're not on the YouTube version of this show, if you go to Mailfuzz TV, there's a bunch of other stuff we talk about on there. We do movie reviews, TV reviews. Me and Tim do the horror movie reviews every week. So there's a lot of other content if you want to hear us talk about stuff that isn't comic books. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep reading DC Comics. And I am about to go and order some Chinese food because I am starving. Thank you once again for watching, guys. And always remember, never get lost in the Speed Force.